So, okay. Oh, yeah.
Well, I suppose, yeah.
That's cool.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I've probably seen that. That's right.
Hey, Pam. Hey, Pam. So I get my stuff on my phone. But for some reason, I can't open it. So should I just go to get the tablet or no? Okay. Okay. I'll come in and slot this easier.
You'll have that. Thank you. Hi, Gary. Should it done?
Call the meeting to order. (5:30 p.m.) Let's join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Celeste, would you take the roll call, please?
Marshall,
Here.
Walker,
Here.
Mahoney, Matlick,
Here.
Dade,
Here.
Andrew, Van Berkom,
Here.
Bryant,
Here.
Greenwald,
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Quick mayor's report. 2 things. Last week, Debbie Durham, the director of the Iowa Economic Development Authority, was in town. She brought along with her some staff members. There were representatives from Senator Grassley's team, from Senator Ernst's team, and from Representative Miller Meeks were with her. We toured them a lot of Main Street buildings. Kira Krasinski, Main Street director, this was making up a meeting that they were supposed to have had in September, and it got rescheduled to now. So toured the Morfell apartments, the Tangles building, and the Main Street properties in the 1100 block. Director Durham had a lot of good information for us, spoke highly of the renovation work that was done downtown on those. And she also went up to the SID Center, talked about some other possibilities for the SID Center. She had a number of ideas as other financial things that could be done to maybe make that available as a different development. So still working to get that out of the city's hands and into somebody else's hands. And then we've also kind of proposed a housing renovation area. Talked to Director Durham about that, and that was kind of at her urging. She wanted a concentrated area where we could put our efforts into an area to help the housing. There are a number of, and Serpic was also at this meeting, and there are a number of housing programs that would help homeowners improve their properties. And then she also talked about other possibilities for the city to take care of vacant and abandoned properties. Talked to her a little bit about the fact that we put in $150,000 or $200,000 a year to take care of vacant and abandoned properties, and she thought there may be other ways that the state could help us make progress faster on that. So, and that was a very good meeting with her that day. So we appreciate her coming to town. The other thing I guess I'd just say is that a number of city officials, Lee County officials, other interested people, Lee County Economic Development, etc., were up in Des Moines the past 2 days for the Southeast Iowa Days, talking to legislators, heard a number of department heads that talked to officials, elected and other officials from Southeast Iowa about the way things are going. The big takeaway from that was probably property tax reform and what it's going to do to cities, counties, and others. So, and that's just yet to be decided by the legislature. But we had a good group. Jim and myself and Brian Carroll all went to that, and then another number of other people. And that, I think, is the only thing I'd put on the mayor's report for today. So moving to citizens' request or citizens' comments. If there's anybody who would like to speak on a general topic, we'd ask you to come to the microphone. You have 3 minutes to to make your request or make your comments. And so is there anybody who would like to speak? Dan?
My name is Dan Tillman, and I would like to just address the latest publication of salaries and potentially a solution to the hornet's nest it seemed to have opened on Facebook and all social media. I looked up state law and even League of Cities, and as a city, we're not required to list each salary individually. We have to list the expenditures, but we don't have to list each individual by name. My wife and I own a taxes and books business, and it's against the law and against ethics for us to give any of that information to anybody other than the sole individual. I don't, and all these guys talking on Facebook or any social media, they don't want their salary public. So my suggestion would be either do it as one lump sum, city salaries for the year are such and such, or even break it up into departments. Administration, everybody in this building. Public Works, everybody that falls under. Fire, all of that put together. I understand it's public record, and if somebody wants it, you have to provide that with them. They can come in here and they can make a formal request. Hey, I want to see the actual budget and the actual list of individuals, because we have to provide that. But we do not have to put it in the paper. And I really think, and this happens every year, and I can't imagine, I know we've got some firefighters here and even city officials here. None of them, that's private information to them. And it shouldn't be public knowledge just to put out there in a paper. I would be very upset if that was done to me. And I know even when I was on city council, it's published what city council makes. But I don't think the majority of people complaining about it really make less than that. They just don't think you ought to make that, or the city of employees ought to make that, but they're okay with them making that. And my last takeaway from that is anybody that's listening, if the city employees' jobs are such cushy, gravy jobs, then why does the city struggle every time we put out a job application? We put out a fire application, we put out a police application, or just a city employee application. We struggle to get people to come in there. But if you read all the posts, they don't do anything but just draw money. And so that's my solution to that, or at least suggestion, is going forward, let's maybe group it into sections or departments or one group number. That way we don't maybe have this firestorm on social media every year. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Moving on to the consent agenda. I'm going to read all those
I'm sorry.
consent agenda.
And one of those is incorrect.
Yeah. Where'd that go? On the consent agenda, the minutes of the regular council meeting for January 15th, the minutes of the city budget workshop, meetings of January 13, 17, and 24, minutes of the special council budget meeting of January 31st, resolution fixing a date for a meeting on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of not to exceed $500,000 general obligation capital loan notes of the city of Keokuk for essential corporate purposes and providing for publication thereof. Resolution fixing the date for a meeting on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of not to exceed $525,000 general obligation capital loan notes for the city of Keokuk, state of Iowa. And that should be for general instead of for essential, but for general corporate purposes, and providing for publication thereof. Resolution approving an urban revitalization tax exemption for the following homeowners: 927 Cleveland Avenue, single-family dwelling, Barbara Bell; 1028 Seymour, addition and deck, Brian Bolts; 350 Wise Lane, accessory building, Josh Dietrich; 924 Fulton Street, second-story addition, Benita Scott; 3598 Middle Road, post frame building, Justin Hawkins; 3012 Middle Road, addition Matthew and Jody Cook. Also a resolution setting a public hearing for the disposal of 116 North 7th Street. Appointment of Jim Harriger to the City Planning Commission, fulfilling a term to expire May 14th, 2029. And motion to pay bills and transfers listed in register numbers 5521 to 5523.
So moved.
Second. I'd like to propose an amendment just to the order of the items listed, with item number 13 being the air evac out at the airport. I know that we were going to have some conversation on the airport when we got to the budget portion. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to push item 13 down right in front of item 16, making it item 15 in that regard then, just so we can have a more concise conversation on that topic flowing right into the budget portion of the meeting.
For a second to Mike's motion.
Second.
And also I need to amend that just to make sure that it's understood that the published version of the agenda said for essential corporate purposes, and that's really for general corporate purposes.
That was
on the resolution fixing the date.
with a $525,000 loan.
So amending that, I need a motion probably to amend that.
So moved for the second amendment to correct the error and change the phrasing on the second general obligation capital loan note date meeting for general corporate purposes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Back to the original motion then, to move the item and then approve the consent agenda, moving that one item. It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we move that, let's see, no, I guess we'd be into old business then. We need a motion to remove from the table the resolution on task force.
So moved.
Second.
Mike seconded. Moved and seconded to remove that item on task force from the table. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, now we can have, we don't need anything else to have discussion on that, do we? Since it's back on the table?
No, this is an agreement just that provides the structure for any help that we have with the task force. And actually, we have two individuals who are working for us now that we should have an agreement in place to justify what the rates are for the current year. Most of those positions you're paying about $20 an hour. It
No,
does vary by,
The temp help for like the mowing are between 14 and 15 an hour.
and then it's set up as a pay plus 50%,
It's 1.5 times the hourly rate.
what we're charged.
So the 14 to 15 would cost around 22, cost the city around $22.
So, is this considered seasonal help? How do we just, I mean, what are we saying this help is? I mean, I
Well-
understand you hire them to mow.
Yeah.
So what is the time frame for that hiring? Do we hire them for the whole year? Do we hire them?
Well, it's typically for the mowing season, so it kind of varies on when the weather changes.
Because I know we had them in December this past year.
Yeah,
still.
so we typically keep a couple of them on to do the city of Christmas, to help with our guys set that up. This year with the cuts we've already made to that budget, we'll probably be letting, depending on what the final number comes out for the contractual services, we're probably looking at November to October to November to cut, and then we will limit the number that we were able to hire.
Okay, well,
So this contract doesn't say we're gonna hire anybody or we're gonna hire 10 people. It just allows us to hire through task force if we hire temp help.
so is there a way that we could say, this is how many we're going to hire, and this is how, when they're going to work, and then if God forbid, we'd have to mow in November, we'd come back and ask if we could keep them, or we would figure out how the city could,
Well, it's,
you know, I know that,
we have a dollar amount we're gonna have to stay within, so that's gonna dictate when we cut everybody off. So if we hit that dollar amount, or where we project to hit that dollar amount in October, because we'll still have to hire people back in the same fiscal year in the spring. So we'll have to leave enough funds to do that back in the spring again. So I think that the dollar amount's gonna dictate the number we hire and the length that we keep them.
and I understand that, but my thoughts in that, and I really hadn't thought about it that way, and thank you for, you know, saying that, but we don't have to spend that money either. It's budgeted, but it's not money we have to spend, right? So, for example, if we don't spend it all, do we just keep them on to keep them on, you know?
No. I mean, the guys we kept on now is we lost a full-time person in the cemetery because he went overseas, so he's on active duty. We have to keep that position, that full-time position open. So we have a temp worker filling that position for basically a calendar year, which is why our budget line item jumped up to a little over 200,000, because that one temp employee is around $60,000. That's not normal for us. So our actual budgets we'll be looking in the range of 150,000 minus the 35 we
The
cut.
temp labor is not the only thing that's in that
Right.
category. The category that temp labor falls under, miscellaneous service, I think it's 6499 is the code. In the 4 budgets where that's at, we're budgeted total of 150,000. Given that you have some other services that you're paying for out of there, his actual expenditures on contract labor for this to meet budget is about 120,000 total. Council has already cut 35,000 from that, so he's going to have to make that work with about 85,000 spread between those categories. And if you were to look at his budget when he's talked about this last year, it was over 200,000. Was that in a cemetery where we had an employee who was
Yes.
gone?
Yep.
So we've had an employee that's gone for a full year. We didn't spend the money on wages, but we did have the expenditure for that position being filled, which is why we have somebody still now, because the gentleman is gone and he's filling a job out at the cemetery. So even though the expenditures for contract labor has been significantly higher than typical, it's offset by reduced wages in that same department. And I kind of apologize, Brian wasn't talking about that when he talked about the size of the figure at the last meeting, how much we're spending. That's not our typical expenditure. You have another employee who's been out hurt that you were replacing with some temp labor as well. And that's something that talking with Brian, he's probably not going to be able to do that moving forward if he's going to make this budget work with a reduced amount at that 35,000, reducing it by 35,000. And he's going to have to be a lot more mindful of what he's doing.
And I understand that, and I don't think that, I do think that it was a different year. We did mow later into the fall, everybody did, and I do think it was a different year, and I know that we were missing an employee and everything, but because we're making these cuts, I want to be rest assured that it'll be seasonal and it'll be kept within the budget. That's all I'm asking.
Is that temp labor, is he through task force?
Yes.
So he's not actually making 60, that's just what we're paying task force, right?
Correct.
Okay. So
We
is there any
pay
way-
1.5 times what his
Right.
hourly rate is to task force.
And it sounds like, we kind of need him there, so is there any way we could make him a city employee instead of paying an extra cut to task force?
Yes and no. He would be next in line for our opening in January of 27. We would have to, if we were to make him an employee right now, we would have to create a position that we don't currently have in the union.
The person that has been gone should be back around the end of May or
He'll be back
June.
in the States around the end of May, and then he has a certain amount of time before he's required to come back to the city, which should be around the start of the fiscal year, around July.
We actually have to keep that as an open, as his position. That's
Yes.
not an open position at the time, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so it would be whoever's doing his job we haven't really hired as a full-time position.
No, we have not.
Other discussion on the task force?
It would be nice to have a closer estimate of just how many people we'll need. Can you, like, 2, 3?
I was kind of trying to wait till we got a final budget because it's on the list again for an additional cut to that line item. So I'm thinking we could get by with 5. I mean, last year we were running about 7 at any given time.
Brian, have we ever thought about putting bids out for people that do this for a living? To
I
put
mean, we
bids
can
out?
look, I don't know that would save us any money, but we can look at that. You'd have to we would have to bid it by, say, individual park or
Sure.
individual lot. I honestly don't know if there's any one landscaping company that's big enough to just take like Ram Park on, because you mow for a week and then you're turning around and starting over again, and I mean, that would be their job. I
Right.
mean,
Well, that
but-
list that you gave us, out of that list, they could probably do the majority of those, not Rand Park, but just the little lots and,
And I would have to check with Casey. She does bid out individual lots. I think it's around 50 to 75 bucks a lot every time it's mowed.
Well, I would hope that we wouldn't bid out any of our parks because we have a parks department. I mean, our
Right.
parks they should do the parks and whatever buildings they can do, but is there a
So-
situation where, I'm making this assumption and I don't know if I'm right. Does the police and fire mow by the fire station and the police station? Is there a
Well,
way
the
that
fire
that can
station
happen?
mows out in front of them, and then our guys mow the rest of that lot.
Okay,
And when we're talking about like contractual mowing, those guys most generally weed eat all the time, so they're not really running our mowers, they're just weed eating. So like in the cemetery, we have upwards of 80,000 tombstones we gotta weed eat. So the majority of the contractual labor is in the cemetery for most of the summer.
and we would not want to lose our people that mow in the cemetery. I understand that.
No, because they're two permanent cemetery guys, they're the ones who are mowing on the riders and doing that stuff, and the other guys are just weed eating.
Thank you.
thank you.
We really need a motion on that then, to go back to we brought it back from the table. We discussed it. We need a motion to either,
No, there already is an accepted motion
okay,
from the previous meeting.
okay.
Is that correct, Celeste? It
We've
was
had our debate.
first and second, yeah.
We're good to vote on it then?
Yes.
Yep.
Kathy said, do we have an amount that we're voting on?
This contract does not have a dollar amount attached to it. It just allows us to hire through task force.
Other comments or questions? Hearing none, I guess we'll vote on the motion. You take a roll call, Celeste?
Marshall,
Yeah.
Walker,
Aye.
Mahoney,
Aye.
Matlick,
Aye.
Dade,
Aye.
Van Berkom, Bryant,
Aye.
Greenwald,
Aye.
Motion passes. Under new business. Now's the time in place for a public hearing on the application for zoning change for property located at 4045 Main Street, Keokuk, Iowa. A public hearing notice was published in the Daily Gate City on January 28, 2026. I'm opening the public hearing at 5:55 PM. Are there comments?
So I would just like to start out by just giving a little synopsis, I guess. And I think there's a few people here that wish to speak. So back in, it's been several months ago, October, November, I received a report or a concern regarding someone running a junkyard at 4045 Main Street. That property is zoned C2, and a larger portion is zoned R1, which is single family. The property at one time for many years was operated, L&B Trucking operated the location. Lions Pride took it over in 2007, operated a redemption center, which pop cans and such. They were in non-compliance with various junk. They were issued in violation letters and citations. I did send a letter of violation to Raritan's Towing and Transport regarding that they were in non-compliance of the zoning code. They actually requested for rezoning on the property. It went to the City Planning Commission on November 17th. The Planning Commission, they recommended to approve the rezoning as a conditional rezoning, only allowing the towing impound storage yard, no other industrial use allowed, a good faith effort to clean the property up, and installation of a fence. So tonight, we're only having the public hearing. This is, the council's not approving anything, but we do have a conditional use rezoning agreement that will need to be signed by Mr. Raritan prior to the end of the public hearing. So, and that mainly has stipulations on it. It would be rezoned as a conditional use to an impound storage yard only. The limitations on the use of the property would be that they could use it as that, and they can have temporary, we have not established what temporary is at this point, but temporary storage of towed vehicles. I did speak with Paul today and go over this to make sure that he understood all other permitted uses within a commercial district could be used for the property, along with any residential if, somebody wanted to do some residential in the back. The prohibited uses would be any other use within an M2 or an M1 district. Salvage yard would be prohibited, junkyards, automobile dismantling operations, metal scrapping, metal recycling, and processing of scrap material, vehicle crushing, shredding, and parts harvesting, manufacturing or industrial process of any kind. It would require to have a 8-foot fence around a vehicle storage area, not the entire property. That would completely obscure any of the stored vehicles from the ground view. And outdoor storage restrictions, just talks about a fence enclosure. Accessory use, they could have administrative offices as part of that security facilities. There is a duration, which really it just stays with the property. This would be a recorded document if the council at our future meeting decides to go ahead and do the zoning change. This would be recorded with the property. And I believe there's other legal ease in there, but it's really nothing other than just general provisions and such. So we did receive a couple of letters that were against the rezoning. And we received one email from a city planning commission member that just, wanted to make sure that the council knew that, which I'm legally bound to actually give you that information on the city planning commission's recommendation. So that she was in favor of it. Anybody have any questions before someone else can get up and speak?
Yeah, Pam, not saying that this would need to ever happen in the future, but is there a method where this could be revoked in the future? Because I do know that the way it's written, that the rezoning, would still pass down if they were to sell the property to some other potential owner. Is there any method that it can be revoked if, future use wouldn't be in line with, the rules that have been outlined?
Yep. So the city council at any time, on its own or on a petition from someone else, can rezone the property. So it would have to go through the same process as what it's been through at this point. It would go through the planning commission, the public hearings, and then if there's anything against it, or if the planning commission doesn't recommend it, or there's people that are against it, that there's a vote of 2/3 for the council to pass the ordinance. But yes, you can rezone it.
Pam, if we voted to be industrial and then 10 years down the road, they decide to move out, to turn it back to residential, do they have to clean the soil or to have that approved for residential?
So most of the property, honestly, is not, it's not compatible for residential.
Okay.
There's a lot of, maybe in the very back, it's possible, I don't know how much ravines and such are back there. So they're not gonna, if you look at the actual agreement on the back, it shows the area that would be rezoned. It doesn't include that portion that's gonna continue to stay R1. That actually, just from when it was annexed, I believe in 1969, that R1 portion never did get rezoned to anything else. Any time that you annex something in, it starts at an R1, the most restrictive zoning. And then you can go and rezone it, portions of it after that. But
All right, thank you.
as far as, cleaning the soil, I can't really truly honestly answer that as far as.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and, 10, 20 years down the road, it might be how the DNR would consider a situation like that. Could a situation where there's only been mild contamination be enough to justify going in and completely stripping off all the, topsoil and replacing it? Should it ever be developed as something else?
A lot of that has been filled in with, I believe it's from Griffin Will. I believe it's material from Griffin Will. So it's not, like I said, it's not going to be suitable most likely for any construction unless that stuff's removed and then soil brought in and compacted.
But like an R1 zoned section can't order an industrial section, can it?
It can.
It can.
Yes, it can. If you have it bordering an industrial with a residential, there is required to be a buffer zone, either fencing or trees, something that there requires to be a buffer zone. And there's plenty of trees out there between the area that's going to be still R1 and the actual what's going to be rezoned or proposed rezoned.
Anything else from the council? Did you want to comment? I don't know. It looked like she was getting up earlier, so.
We have a couple people in the back that wish to
Sure,
speak.
you bet.
And then if
Come
Paul
to the-
wants to speak or.
Come to the podium and adjust the microphone, please, so it makes it a lot easier for us to hear up here. And then name and
Okay.
address, please, Jim.
Whoops, how's that? Better?
Oh, that's better.
I'll get up close. My name is Jim Wolf, and I live at 2581 357th Street, which is, requires me to go past this property in question to get to my residence. I bought the residence before it was owned by Rairdens and became what it is now. I believe it was back when Bradley's had it. But what I'd like to ask the council here is that, to consider the effect that it's having in its current condition. It's, you've probably seen some of the pictures of it, and it's not pretty. I mean, like someone once said when they wanted to define porn, they said, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. Well, the same is true with junk. I can't really define it, but I know it when I see it. It appears that in the past 2 years that it has gotten progressively worse as old vehicles, buses, bins filled with trash, and and it's getting closer. It's near the ball diamond there. It's near Durr Motors. It's visible from the highway. These are all things that affect people that visit Keokuk. It affects their view of the town. So I want you to consider that, that I would ask maybe that the property be cleaned up, or a fence erected to kind of mask some of that. Just a nice attractive fence around there would do wonders for the sight lines. And I guess that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Other comments?
I didn't want to cut in front of anybody.
Yeah, you're fine.
Well, I am very nervous, so if it look like I'm nervous,
That's
it's because
okay.
I'm nervous.
Give us your name and address.
I'm Paul Reardon. I live 2878 208th Avenue, which is Montrose address. This property out here is owned by Reardon Towing and Transport, and I'm part of that company. My son ran it, and he passed away, and I'm sorry, to start, when we had the planning commission meeting, and Ms. Broomhall mentioned that she talked about it just being blight and what have you. Those vehicles out there, other than with a few exceptions, some of them the ones we own, those vehicles out there have been removed from the streets of Keokuk or the highways of the state of Iowa, Illinois, or Missouri. These aren't cars, we don't dismantle cars out there. We don't, it's not a junkyard. They call it a junkyard. It's just a storage area. We store these cars. Is it unsightly in places? Yes. Did I agree to put a fence up and move them back away from the road a bit? Yes. We've moved probably, I don't know. I just tell the guys, hey, if you're out and about, grab a car, bring it down. If it's something that we own. A lot of those cars we don't own, because even the cars that are the blight, the ugly, the nasty looking cars, they belong to somebody, and we've got to go through a process. They have their privilege or their right to have their vehicle taken from them in a process. We can't just take it and stick it right in a shredder. There's a camper out there. I was gonna take pictures, and honestly, I looked at the package you guys have got for the meetings tonight. And I thought, you don't need another 10 pages of paper. But we've got a camper out there that we picked up about a half a block from McDonald's, full of trash. Guy was living in it. He told us that in that camper somewhere is either a raccoon, a rat, a possum, something. He said, I can hear it at night. Well, that's out there not because we want it, but just because they don't want it on the streets of Keokuk. And so when they talk about the vehicles that are there, you've got to understand these cars aren't out there with the intention of being dismantled. If you drive through there and look at cars, there's cars that are partly tore apart. They came in that way. I've got an Impala that we towed off from in front of the high school out there. It's on right where Burke Street and Plank come together. Sat in the front yard of that house for probably a couple of months. No doors, no windows, no tires, hit hard in the front. It just, I mean, it's just a piece of junk. What we should do is take that car and pick it up and take it right to the shredder. I'm okay with that. I want it to look nice too. However, they have their rights as property owners. We've got to serve papers on them, and Casey Barnes actually had that towed. So she did the paperwork, so that's been disposed of legally. We just need to get rid of the car. So anyway, and that's, with that being said, we own about 33 acres out there. And it's back, and actually actually now it's 37 now, because we own the road that goes at 258th Avenue, which I have no idea where that number come from. That road's our road too. So we own the road and the property back. The edge of the very front edge of the property is 547 feet from the roadway. So people just driving by can't just see the cars back there and can't just see it unless you're looking. We have a lot of our semis sitting there and some of our stuff we use for business. The buildings, we've got trailers, but the vast majority of vehicles there are ones that we've towed in. The ones we keep by the front of the building is we've had a lot of stuff stolen. So we try to keep the stuff that we want to keep an eye on towards the front. We can change. I've talked to Miss Broomhall. And I'm in agreement. I don't have a problem. We'll build a fence. I don't have a problem with that. I want to make it look a little nicer. We'll try to keep it mowed up better. We'll try to keep the cars back. But there's still going to be unsightly cars there. And that's our business. And like I said, we're towing them for the city of Keokuk. And quite honestly, the majority of the cars we tow, we don't get paid for. We don't get paid a dime. We get scrap rights. That's all we get out of them. So when you talk about the soil, that property was bought in the 1970s by Daryl and Linda Bradley, or Daryl Bradley, I don't know who was his wife then, and it was a ravine. And it was filled with foundry sand from Griffin Wheel and Keokuk Steel Castings. So that ground back there, I've actually had contact from people in Texas wanting to come to harvest that property out because there's metal buried in the ground back there. Well, and when we bought it, I went to Washington, Iowa, not DC. I went to Washington, Iowa, and I spoke with the DNR, and I explained to them the circumstances and the situation, because the place was basically going to go up for like foreclosure or whatever. We bought it, and they told me that there's nothing everything in the ground that is buried is inert. He says, not a problem. He says, there's no contamination issues. There's some stuff there that you can push on over. It's all foundry sand. However, he said, don't build a building back there. Don't remove any property. Don't remove any dirt. Don't remove anything out of the ground. But the ground, there's no contamination problem with that. The vehicles we're storing are not being dismantled. So you're not getting oil from the vehicles into the ground. It's just a storage area. And it is very much needed for our business. That's where we keep cars parked out there when we tow them in. What I'm requesting or would like to see done, and I've talked to Ms. Broomhall about this, is the actual property, not including the road, there's like 33 acres there. What I would like to do is take there's a big ravine out back, from the ravine forward, make that, I thought industrial or M2 or M3 industrial seems awful. When I think industrial, I think of like Roquette and Griffin Wheel and things like that. This is just a storage area for cars. I'm not building anything back there. I'm not going to manufacture anything back there. It's going to be a storage area for cars. Cars, trucks, boats, and campers. That's what we tow in mainly. Some semis. From the ravine forward, I would like to see that, however I can use it, zoned industrial or whatever it needs to be. The back half of the property, I wish to leave residential. It's maybe 11, 12 acres back there, I guess. So like 17 acres, it was 17 acres, 18 acres, something like that from the ravine forward. And then from there back, we just leave that residential. I will pay the cost of having it surveyed. We have it all surveyed and however to make that legal and make that proper. But that's what I'm requesting. If I can do that, I also agreed to sign to the conditional offer that, or the agreement that I would build a fence, not completely around the whole area. What we'd like to do is build it around the cars we're going to store. I can't afford to enclose all 30 some acres with a fence, but we can build an area for the cars so they're not visible from the road. The stuff they talk about, and Mr. Wolf had mentioned there's some there are roll-offs out there. They're full of junk. Those aren't mine. Those belong to Ray Bradley. He asked me if he could park them out there. We're not even renting them property. He's just parking them there. I mean, it's not, they were on the streets of Keokuk. And he said that the city was on him about that, so he wanted if we could bring him out. And I said, yeah, sure, it's commercial, go ahead. We purchased that property in 17, my mom, my dad, my wife and I, and we were told that when we purchased it was commercial. So we had no idea that any part of that was residential. If you look up on Beacon Schneider, just looking it up, it comes up commercial. It was advertised as commercial when we bought it. We've paid tax on it as commercial for the last 9 years. So it's not like we knew that we were getting away with something. We had no idea. And I said, I'm okay if we need to build a fence, we got to do what. So far, like I said, I've had cars removed from out there, so the cars out front aren't as obvious. The U-Haul, I say as obvious, they're moved to our other location. The U-Haul, we're gonna try and move the U-Haul out, kind of out where those dumpsters are, I guess, kind of that little parking lot area. So get them away from the building. That's part of our business also. I did agree, like I said, to just use it for storage. And we had a portable crusher in there before and cleaned up once before. And I agreed not to bring the crusher back. I mean, the crusher, it catches all the oil, they drain the gas, they take they do all the DNR type work. However, if I can't have a crusher there, I'm okay with it. But it's a portable one, they move in, move out. But the only question, I guess, when we didn't talk today was, I do have fire departments use that property for training. I've got one scheduled for like March with Donaldson Fire, and I don't know, we're gonna have 16 cars out there they're gonna cut up. It's like a weekend training session. I don't know if I can still do that or not. I don't know if that's, we didn't talk about that, and I just thought about it after I left today, but that's the only thing that I would, have a question about there, but I'm just asking to allow us to have it resurveyed, zoning it whatever is appropriate from the ravine forward for the storage of vehicles. And if we need to put a fence up or whatever, I'm perfectly okay with that. Losing that property would be very detrimental to our business. And we really need that property just for storage of basically police impound cars. So I know there's something else I was gonna say, but I don't know what it is.
Well, my recommendation would be, with your conversation with Pam, would be to show her the area where the cars are going to be stored and where the fence is going to be put in, so it is masked for the people going by, so it looks professional and clean.
And we would use the back building, honestly, as part of the wall. We would hook to the back building and come out so that there's a section there, 40, 50 feet, whatever, that we won't have to build a fence. It'll be behind the building.
Right, but it just that's conveyed to Pam for approval.
I'm perfectly okay with that, whatever she wants to do.
Yeah, so tonight we're just doing the public hearing. Paul can sign this here before we close the public hearing. If the council wants to see, though, anything else on the conditional use agreement, you need to tell me now so I can put that in there. I do think that Mr. Bradley's scrapping or whatever he's doing out there is probably shouldn't be allowed, but that's something that we'll go ahead and it does say on here, metal scrapping, metal recycling, and processing of scrap material is prohibited, so that would have to be moved or relocated. But we can, discuss that at our next meeting on the actual ordinance.
I have a quick question. This might be more for Chief Baum, because I can't remember, were impounded cars ever lined up right down there next to the police station? Seems like they were at one time.
I truly couldn't tell you. It's
But-
been a few years back.
Seth?
Sorry.
Was there ever a time where impounded cars were lined up down there next to the police department?
At the police department, those are forfeited cars. There is a little bit of a difference. So when Raritan's tows a vehicle for us, sometimes those vehicles end up being abandoned, and we go through the process, and then we never actually own those vehicles. The ones that you see at the PD lot are vehicles that we have seized for forfeiture, that we will eventually own the vehicles and then sell those at auction.
Okay.
We have a couple out there right now.
I didn't know if it might make it easier to have an impounded car there until Raritan's can claim ownership of it, then they can take it and take it to the shredder if that's what they want to do with it.
Yeah, I don't think that lot's big enough.
Okay.
I'm okay with it. I really am.
Yeah, so.
If it was a
and-
situation that might alleviate congestion out. at your
Sure,
place, you know,
and one
just an
thing.
idea, just kind of curious.
Yeah, and one thing to consider, one, I don't think the lot's gonna be big enough, depending on how many vehicles we're towing. And two, that would be unsightly at 12th and Johnson as opposed to offset back out by McCready's much further off the road.
And honestly, when we tow a vehicle, it's not just a, hey, 3 weeks from now, the vehicle's yours. Most vehicles come in, there's holds on them for insurance, registration, a valid driver, whoever owns the vehicle. So there's holds on them, so we can't just dispose of them. But after we hold them for a period of time, we have a process we have to go through. And we've got to contact, and actually we go through the sheriff's office. And truthfully, and I sure don't want to throw him under the bus. Law enforcement in this area is the best. I mean, they are the best. And this guy's a great guy, but it took us a little time to get some of our paperwork back. But we would turn the vehicle information into him. He would do the process. He would do the paperwork. He would do the lien search and the registered owner search. He sends the paperwork back to us. We send the paperwork out on a 10-day notice. And by 10-day notice, they have 10 days from the day they pick it up to pick their vehicle up, basically. If by 10 days from the day they get their paper, you know what I'm trying to say. And so they have 10 days to pick it up. After 10 days from when they received it, then we can apply for a junk certificate. And sometimes it takes a while, especially if there's a hole. We've got one vehicle out there we've had for a year and a half sitting in the garage that was part of a homicide investigation. Well, that vehicle's going to be there, and we kept it locked up, and we haven't charged anybody. We don't, I mean, and as far as I'm concerned, it's ours now. They've released it. But these are all things that we do to get it. So when you tow a vehicle off the street, it's not a, hey, this piece of junk needs to go to the scrapyard. And some of them do, most of them do. But the thing of it is, we've got to go through due diligence to make sure the paperwork's followed and make sure that they're notified, they have rights, they want to take their vehicle and pay the tow bill, they're sure more than welcome. But the majority of the cars we tow in, nobody ever picks them up. And, you know, because nobody's got insurance, nobody's got license, nobody's, you know, whatever. So, I mean, we do get some accidents, you know, accidents have insurance, and of course, they usually pick it up right away or whatever, but the majority of the cars we tow in are been sitting there for 3 months on the street, nobody's moved it, they've tagged it, it's time to go, it's sitting in the back of somebody's yard, and I don't know who owns the car, they want it towed. So that's the majority of what you see out there are vehicles that have been towed off the streets or off the highways or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, TJ Newberry had talked 2 years ago when he got out of the contract. He said, hey, let's just let the city get an impound lot and we'll tow a car in. You pay us for towing the car in, and then you can process the car and do what you want to do with it. And if you want to do that, buddy, I'm all for it. And that's a good idea because I'll get paid for it. But the city can't afford that. And you're not going to have somebody to maintain these cars, do the paperwork, take care. And then when somebody comes, I want to clean my stuff out of my car. You got to take them out and clean it out. I mean, there's a lot to it. And I know at the time that they approached the city and the city said, we don't want nothing to do with abandoned vehicles. No, nothing to do with them. So, I mean, it falls on our shoulder. And like I said, I understand that's the nature of the beast. It's part of the business. But that's just what we need to do. We have to have a process we have to follow. That's why some of them are there. That's why some are there a little longer than others. And then once they become ours, then we have to find a place to take them. And like I said, we're getting ready to crush again. I've got a guy in Leon's gonna bring the portable crusher in, and we're gonna probably crush maybe 500 or 600 or 700 cars. And that gives us a little more room to move them to our place. But, so I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Yeah, just,
it's just not financially feasible for the city to pay to have us tow cars into them. And I don't think you want to get in the business of storage. If you want to, I got a piece of property to sell you.
Are there any other?
I have one for Pam. You talked about Bradley storing them containers. I've been by his place down, and he lines the street with those and a bus.
Yes.
And they're neatly put out there. I mean,
I have pictures at this point, and
Yeah.
we need to reel him back in. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
So I would be remiss if I did not I do want to say the Keokuk Comprehensive Plan 2018, the land use is identified as commercial. And I just, we have our plan, and that's something that we should try to follow. I don't think that an impound yard, as it is at this point, would be a commercial use, but the only other thing that the city could do was look at changing the zoning to a C3, come up with a definition for an impound yard and restrictions on that. That's the only other thing that we could look at if you weren't comfortable doing the M2. And I'm going to bring this up to Paul. I do not have my notary.
Yes, ma'am. And I would be okay if it is zoned commercial or industrial, I guess. When we sell the property, I'm okay with it going back to commercial. I can't foresee them, if I lived back there, I wouldn't want somebody putting a factory there.
I'm not
But-
sure that's always possible.
I don't know.
Okay, so I'll just have you sign
Here.
that.
It
I don't know if you need anything
might be
else.
another Elcom carbide type situation, and we don't want that.
This is just the public hearing. There's no rezoning happening tonight. No other,
Yes,
no
ma'am.
other comments? Celeste, were there any written comments or objections?
I received 2 letters in favor and 2 not in favor, and those were all presented.
All right.
Are you done with me, are you? Am I good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, there being no further comments or objections, I'd close the hearing at 6:26. Certainly.
In public speaking very likely. Just bear with me. I'm not against, I'm a neighbor of Paul's. So I don't want.
Please step to the microphone and give us your name
My
and
name's Chris
address.
Single. I moved here 2 years ago, bought some land from Bob McDowell. We built a nice house, and I drive by the property every day. If you guys are looking to clean up Keokuk, I'm from Iowa City, Cedar Rapids area, drive by it. I think everybody has the right to make money. Don't get me wrong. I think that's great. But there was a pallet left out, broken pallet. It's been there 2 years on the road. I fixed the road. I asked Paul for rock, and he's great. He gives me the rock. I got the tractor. I'm an old farmer. I clean it up. He owns it, but I maintain it, and it's great. I appreciate what he does. But there's saplings that have grown up all around the property. It's never been mowed, to my knowledge, and it is an eyesite. And if you really want to look at it, if you want to make a judgment, just look at it. If he does the things that he says he's going to do and put a fence up, that's great. And I would be okay with that, as long as the junk doesn't get above the fence. But I drive by it 3 or 4 times a day, and right now it's a pigsty. It needs to be cleaned up. So the other thing is, there's campers. He says that stuff comes in and goes out right away, or not right away, because one was 1.5 years. However, there's been campers that are back there that are debilitated. As I drive by, I can see them, and they've been there since I've driven by 2 to 3 years now. So I'm not sure what that is. The campers that sit back there, those aren't coming from, you know what I'm saying? They're not coming in and going out, is what I'm trying to say.
Do you want to go back up there?
Well, I just don't know why they would stay there.
The campers that you're looking at back there, I assume I should stand. The campers you're looking at were towed off the streets of Keokuk.
Okay,
And last year when I crushed, or end of last year when I crushed, that didn't have the paperwork all ready for those to be destroyed.
okay.
So we did destroy a bunch of campers.
But
August?
There's a lot back there
Well, there's
still.
3 or 4 probably, I guess, but still, we have mowed the grass out there. The grass has been mowed. It's
In
not always.
front, in front of the
Yes,
machine shed?
Yes, it's been mowed.
Okay,
The campers back there are, well, I was gonna have the crusher just dispose of them while they're back there. There's one that's stolen back there, not by me, but I'm waiting for the police department to finish up with that one. That was from Burlington. But the other campers are, yeah, I've got the paperwork from Casey Barnes
Okay.
to get rid of those,
So those,
but they weren't ready the last time they crushed. So I'm not hoarding them. I'm not keeping them for any special
Okay.
reason.
but they're
They're,
back there.
they're,
But,
they're there to be crushed.
but you got to admit that they've been there longer than, like you said, that they were just going to come in and then go out.
I understand they're gonna come in and go out. There's a process. We've got a process to go through,
Okay.
and we've got to do that process.
Okay.
And you talked about the road. When we purchased that property, when Lions Pride or Brian Boyd had it, I went out and I picked all the debris up off the ground.
Okay.
Somebody had a picture of it. It looked nice and pristine. That building was a pigsty when we bought it. We cleaned the property. We went through and cleaned all the trash off the road. That's, we've cleaned it up tremendously with trash. What's there now is cars and trucks. That's, we're just using it for storage. The stuff that's there, we get rid of as soon as we possibly can.
Okay.
And you see, if you're not sure if I'm gonna build an 8-foot fence, like I said, I'm gonna build an
Okay.
8-foot fence. Might not be today.
Yeah.
It's
No,
gonna be April, May, June.
no.
But we'll put a fence up, just like I said I would.
And I'm willing to even mow that front part. I
Well,
want it to look
I never
nice.
asked you to maintain the road.
No, you didn't. And I
Yeah.
did.
Yep, and I appreciate that, and I've ordered rock for that.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, no, and
but
that's what I
we're-
want to be a good neighbor in front of everybody, but I
yeah,
also
okay.
want them to
Well,
know.
they've got other
what we're
things to talk about,
dealing-
so.
Well, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll close the hearing at 6:31. Next is consider a resolution acknowledging the public hearing for rezoning request for 4045 Main Street. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved and second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes.
Now, I ask one thing, Pam, is there anything we can do to speed up the process so those vehicles can be disposed of?
Can't hear you, Roger.
I truly don't know what the process is as far as disposing of them. I know that once, and Zeth, you can probably add on what that abandoned vehicle, what that process is. I don't know what that process is.
Yeah, I believe once a vehicle's out there and you notify the owner that it's been taken and it's considered abandoned property, they have 10 days, if I remember correctly, to make claim to the vehicle before they can start their process. Now, what the red tape is on that end of the process, I'm not sure what that timeline looks like. It probably has to do with the workload that the state is experiencing at that time. Also know that sometimes this can be a little bit of a pain depending on the vehicle that has been towed. Say it doesn't have plates, you run the VIN, you come up with a previous owner. Well, maybe it's been title jumped 2, 3, 4 times since then, and the owner that is listed truly doesn't have an interest in the vehicle, but they're hard to get a hold of, and then that's a whole nother process. It just adds time to it. Nothing's fast.
Thank you, Zeth. Item 9 would be consider a resolution authorizing Askew Scientific Consulting LLC contract. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Tom, what is it that you're looking to have Ed do?
I'm sorry, what?
What are you looking to have Ed do with this contract?
There's 3 things. We've got, and they all are part of our long-term control plan, and it all fits in with sewer separation and things that are going about with that, with the first flush study, and these things need to be in place. We need to have a new headwork study done. We need to have an enforcement response plan done, and the CMOM that has to do with the sewer, the collection system. And those are the 3 things that we're looking for Ed to do.
Tom, question for you. Why are we looking at Ed to do this instead of the company that we recently replaced him with?
Stanley is working mainly with our pretreatment. And although pretreatment is part of the whole, these are other separate things that don't have as much to do with pretreatment. And if we were to have either Stanley or another entity do these things, they would have to be brought up to speed, and it would take a lot more time and be a lot more expensive too.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a couple of time deadlines with a couple of these reports yet this spring that are due. And
Yes.
he's quite a ways through, was already quite a ways through this.
Mhm.
But it is a different level of service than what we were talking about before.
Right.
More discussion? Been moved and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10 is consider resolution approving new rates and fees for services and interments at Oakland Cemetery. I need a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
So, as we've mentioned, I think during a couple of the budget meetings, Public Works has done some research into other cemetery prices, Fort Madison, Mount Pleasant, Burlington. We fell well below the average of the area. So what we're asking is to, the Exhibit A attached, we'd like to raise our fees to that, and that is at the discretion of the council, consistent of Section 1104-100 of the municipal code. We just ask for approval for the rate hikes.
Are there questions?
So what are we raising just a single plot, just as an example? Single plot, full size is 525 now. What was it before?
400.
400. Okay, thanks.
Further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, consider a resolution authorizing the filing of an application for the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program for Palin Street Reconstruction Project. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
The Palin Street Reconstruction Project is consistent with the city's adopted planning documents. In the 2018 Comprehensive Plan under Chapter 5, Resilient Infrastructure, establishes Goal 1 to ensure Keokuk maintains an efficient quality street network with objectives to reconstruct or resurface deficient or deteriorated street segments. Palin Street was presented to the City Council as part of the street repair plan during a workshop on February 15th, 2024, and it was subsequently incorporated into the city's street improvement plan through 2031. The STBG program provides us an opportunity to seek federal funding assistance for Palin Street project. Authorization from the City Council is required to proceed with the submission of the grant application. Those grant applications were due last Friday, but the funding for that, if we were approved, wouldn't come till federal fiscal year of 2030.
So we're requesting I think it's 1.5 that you,
Yeah, so
1.5 million that was.
when there was a little bit of confusion on the application rules, the amount that regional planning stated they have was like 1.3458 million or something like that. And then after we had submitted, regional planning contacted us and asked us to exceed that amount by 100 or 200,000 because they don't know the actual. So we did apply for 1.5 million.
On a $4 million project.
Yes.
And this, I think from what you had said, there's probably about 5 other applications that are in for this
That's what
same pool.
they were anticipating, yes.
So they'll score this out in comparison with that. Whichever one they score out the highest is the one that's going to get the funding. This is designed to be a geo bond project. We'll see how the legislature does with continuing to allow us to do geo bonding without having to do a 60% vote that is not likely to pass.
Discussion?
So if we were approved this, we couldn't really strategize until 2030?
We wouldn't get the. we
Like,
wouldn't
would
get
this
the-
inhibit our ability to strategize on this project, not knowing until 2030, like actual costs of
Well-
stuff, you know?
You're going to know in a couple of months.
Yeah,
They,
well-
they go through a review process here over the next 2 months. It's just, it gets put into the pipeline 5 years in advance, and they do that specifically so you can plan out your project when it comes time.
I guess, like, if we get all our engineering costs lined out now, wouldn't that change by the time we actually move
These-
forward with the project?
These are estimates. Brian's taken a project that was done here this last year and tried to use some inflationary factors in going into 2030. Again, these are estimates. The amount that we're going to get, though, is capped. The grant funds that are there, there's going to be, whatever that dollar amount is what they're going to probably award to the highest scoring project.
And there is a tentative project schedule attached with that grant. We wouldn't be looking to hire an engineering firm till around 2029 or so.
And this just puts us in the running to receive this.
Yes.
So, yeah, okay.
And that's about the same time frame that Brian was planning on doing this project anyway. So we're not looking to move that anywhere off of where it has been discussed being at. It's just looking to find a way to pay for it outside of having to bond for it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Item 12 is consider a resolution to approve 2 change orders for South Third and Des Moines Street tunnel access. Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
So the new access manhole has been constructed at South Third and Des Moines to gain entry into our 1895 sewer tunnel. The original contract was awarded to Keokuk contractors in the amount of $69,225. To comply with our EPA mandate of the sewer separation, we're required to do a first flush study. The new access manhole will allow us to install the monitoring and testing equipment into the existing tunnel. Now's the time that we're ready to get that equipment installed because the tunnel's constructed, or the access is constructed into the tunnel. The change order is to relocate the electrical sluice gate and conduit and install a new stormwater intake, and that is in the amount of $24,593. The second is to install a downspout connection, excavate, furnish, and install a new concrete pad to set the new control building, and furnish and install conduit from the new rain gauge to the new control room in the amount of $34,687. The total of both change orders are $59,280.
Further discussion? Hearing none? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Item 13 was moved down a little bit, so we're item 14, consider resolution reauthorizing the mayor to sign a demolition contract for a 4-family conversion located at 727 Exchange.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
The Keokuk City Council approved the mayor to sign a demolition contract for 727 Exchange Street. I don't recall what date that was. I didn't put that down there. It was Resolution 307-2025. The contractor actually contacted us and informed us that it could not be completed in a timely manner due to equipment failure. Staff reached out to CCS, who agreed to demolish the structure for the original bid amount of $12,250 plus up to $2,000 in tipping fees.
Pam, I would suggest, and I mean, I know we're going to vote on this, but I would suggest on down the line, it doesn't have to be right now, but I would suggest on down the line that we have a workshop explaining demolition, properties that we take, 657, that type of thing, because I have a lot of questions that people ask about, well, why aren't we rehabilitating something when we should instead of tearing it down, that kind of stuff. And maybe further down the line in a couple of months after we get the budget done, maybe it's time that we have a workshop so people understand all that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Uh,
Other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And item 15 is consider a resolution to release a reversionary interest in real estate in the block 16 of the original city of Keokuk, Lee County, Iowa. Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
This is a request from River Terrace Venture LP. They are,
We don't have a second.
oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Tyler
Um,
seconded it.
Got it.
We received a request to release, we had when this project was originally done, there was a senior housing that was constructed there back in 1982. We turned the land over to them, and it had a statement in there about if the property was not, if they didn't begin construction on the senior housing units, that the property would revert back to the city. As they're trying to clean up title on this property, they'd just like to see that wiped off since they have constructed and have met the terms of the original project guidelines. This would authorize the attorney to prepare documents for the mayor to sign to get that title cleaned up.
Other questions, discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Now we go backwards to number 13, which is consider, and we did that to group kind of budgetary things together. So this would be because the next thing on the budget, on the agenda after that is going to be more discussion on the budget. So number 13 is consider a resolution to approve a lease with Air Evac EMS of Inc. Of city-owned property at the Keokuk Municipal Airport. Need a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Brian?
Air Evac has requested to lease city-owned property located at the Keokuk Municipal Airport, consisting of approximately 31,622 square feet. The lease premises will be used for Air Evac's operations, including associated improvements constructed by the lease. The proposed ground lease agreement establishes the terms and conditions under which Air Evac will occupy and use the property, including access rights, maintenance responsibilities, and other standard lease provisions. The lease will be effective March 1st, 2026, and is intended to support continued emergency medical services operations serving the city of Keokuk and the surrounding area. Staff is recommending that the city council approves the lease agreement between the city and Air Evac for the lease of the city-owned property located at the airport, effective March 1st, 2026.
As the budget was built going through this, the revenue for the lease was not included in what we had projected for our budgeted revenues for next year. We did have a provision for fuel. We didn't have the exact amount of what we were going to get. Do you think that we're netted out pretty close on that anyway? That's what I thought. But one of the items that we could add to getting the budget to a balanced position, if you do approve this contract, it would move us $12,000 towards filling that gap.
Is this a building also, or is it just land?
So we would lease them the land and they will build their own facility. New hangar, they'll bring in a modular for their personnel. Mike's here with Air Evac. He has all the answers.
Good evening. Yes, I'm Mike from Airvac. Mike King is my name. And we will bring a modular to the location in addition to building a 45 by 50 hangar, which will end up property of the city after this is all over with. Did you guys have any other questions that I can answer for you by chance?
Do you have any other airports that you use this for in your region, or
In the region, yes, we do have a number of airports that we utilize.
how does our lease compare to other cities?
Actually, it's a little higher. That's why we started out lower, because we were starting out where we normally are about at. But our leases with those airports are longer, have been around longer. So they were before, this is inflation and everything like that. We're not offended by any rate. We weren't, we were starting out where we normally are at. So it's a pretty good number for us. And I think it's a pretty good number for where we'll be at for the future. And I think you guys have some good increases over time that if you guys need to, we can always readdress down the road too. I think
How long is this lease for?
the first initial lease, I believe, is for 10, and then 2 backup 5s after that.
And is it locked in at that current rate, or is there?
With
inflation?
baked in increases,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
I believe it's a 3% annual increase.
Thank you.
Also, while I am up here, I want to thank the airport board and Raymond for all the help that they did in your guys' time as well. Thank you. Do you have any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Raymond, did you, as part of this, and the reason we moved it back was we're talking about budget stuff now. And one of the things on there was to go to an FBO and all that. Would you tell us some information on airport usage and grants and all that sort of thing while we're discussing that? And Raymond, you're not here as regular as some of the other ones, so give us your name and your title.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Raymond Ott. I'm the airport or the manager for Keokuk Municipal Airport. I want to start out by saying thank you for the opportunity to present information today regarding the Keokuk Airport and its role that it serves in the community. The purpose of the packet that I provided to you is a clear overview of the airport's economic impact, operational performance, and the contributions to the city of Keokuk. The data included highlights how the airport supports local jobs, generates revenue, attracts visitors to our community, and leverages state and federal funding to maintain and improve critical infrastructure. By sharing this information, I'll aim to illustrate how the value of the airport is a vital asset that strengthens the economic and financial health of our community. In 2022, the Iowa DOT released a report that focused on evaluating and documenting the economic significance of aviation in the state of Iowa. The 2022 Iowa Aviation Economic Impact Report was prepared to better understand how the aviation system works and concluded that air transportation is a key contributor to the state's economy. Below in the graph, it'll show the positive revenue generating that the Keokuk Municipal Airport has on the city of Keokuk. $2 million in economic contribution to our community that annually comes directly from the Keokuk Municipal Airport. It supports 4 airport-related jobs. There are 11 local community jobs that are directly impacted, with an average of 1,203 annual visitors to the airport. Even without an airline service, the Keokuk Municipal Airport has a real beneficial economic influence on the city of Keokuk. This impact comes from 3 main areas. First is on-port airport activity. Jobs, payroll, fuel sales, hangar leases, maintenance, and flight training. Second is the local spending tied to those businesses like contractors, suppliers, and service providers. Third is visitor spending from business travelers, upcoming medical flights, agriculture operators, and transient pilots who stay in our local hotels, eat at our local restaurants, and generate business within the community. Economic models from the Iowa DOT and the FAA show that airport supports local jobs, generates payroll, and brings outside dollars in the Keokuk community. Next category is fuel represented in revenue line item 001-280-4751. This chart below will show the profit of fuel sales made to the city when it was run by a fixed-based operator. When the last FBO ran the airport, they were responsible for giving a 5-cent kickback to the city of Keokuk for every gallon of fuel sold. From the years of 2014 to 2019, the total amount of profit on fuel sales paid to the city was $7,907.22. Since 2020, when the city of Keokuk took over running the day-to-day operations, the city of Keokuk has made $182,749.97 in profit from fuel sales. That amounts to a $174,842 increase in revenue when ran by an FBO versus city-managed operations. The figures at the end of the chart are certainly understated, as we still have 5 more months of this fiscal year for fuel sales. In 2023 fiscal year, the airport had $135,000 in fuel sales. In 2024-25 fiscal year, we had $191,000 in fuel sales. It's a 41% increase from fiscal year 23-24 to fiscal year 24-25. This current budget, the airport is at $159,000 in fuel sales year to date. We initially budgeted $150,000 for the year. Since then, we have readjusted to anticipate a total of $215,000 in fuel sales with a projected profit to the city of Keokuk of $51,000. That's a 58.4% projected increase from fiscal year 23 to 25. For the upcoming year, budgets that we're doing now, for 26-27 fiscal year projection, we're anticipating on $248,000 in projected sales with a projected profit to the city of Keokuk around $65,000. That is almost an 82% increase from fiscal year 23-24. Next category would be leases, found underneath revenue line item 001-280-4311. Currently, the Keokuk Municipal Airport has 14 aircraft leasing hangar space out of 15 possible hangars located at the airport. It's $31,260 in revenue each year off of hangar leases. The Keokuk Municipal Airport also has a hay ground lease agreement that brings in an additional $9,280 in revenue each year. And that is an increase from the previous 10-year agreement that we had that was of $4,400. With Air Evac coming in on a 20-year lease, this will bring in an additional $12,000 in revenue per year with an annual 3% increase in lease revenue as part of their contract. Air Evac Life Team anticipates on using 17,000 gallons of jet fuel each year that they will buy from the Keokuk Airport, which will be another increase to our fuel sales line item. Combining the hangar leases, hay contract, and the new lease agreement with Air Evac Life Team, that's $52,540 in revenue to the city of Keokuk. Next category is capital expenditures, found underneath line item 001-280-6710. The capital expenditures that occur at the Keokuk Municipal Airport are due to funding from state, federal, and city of Keokuk local matches. Even though the city of Keokuk is only responsible for the local match portion of the project, we as a city are still responsible for budgeting the full dollar amount in the fiscal year budget paperwork, as the city of Keokuk will pay the full amount up front and then being reimbursed by the government agency for that portion of the grant. The refunding of the grant money back to the city of Keokuk will be represented in revenue line item 001-280-4400. Below is an example of the next project on the city of Keokuk's capital improvement plan. The total cost of reconstruction of taxiway Alpha and Delta taxiway lights is $863,698. That amount will be paid upfront by the city of Keokuk, with $820,513 being reimbursed back to the city of Keokuk through FAA grant money. The city of Keokuk's local match contribution represents 5% of the total cost, with 95% of that cost coming through federal grant money. The increase in takeoff and landings that are about to occur due to the Air Evac Life Team coming to the Keokuk Airport will in turn increase the amount of money that we'll get from the FAA and grant money. This increase in federal funding allows the airport to maintain critical infrastructure, such as our runways, taxiways, lighting, and safety systems, ensuring it can safely and efficiently handle the current and the future traffic load that we will have. It enables the purchase of modern equipment and technology, supports compliance with FAA regulations, and reduces the burden on local taxpayers. These improvements not only enhance operational efficiency and safety, but also attracts more aviation activity, supports more local business and jobs, provides vital community services like medical flights and emergency response, ultimately strengthening the airport's role as an economic driver in the region. If closure of the Keokuk Municipal Airport is under consideration, the key issue to face is the creation of a new financial burden on the citizens of Keokuk that would require repaying the full federal and state grants from the past 20 years. Airport closure would result in the city of Keokuk needing to pay back the prior 20 years of grant investments made by the state and federal government. That number that would need to be paid back is $7,856,421. The chart above is pulled directly from the Federal Aviation Administration Office of Airports Planning and Programming. See the above chart for the breakdown for the grants dating back to year 2005. The City Council will decide to close the airport. Again, $7,856,421 would need to be paid back for federally funded projects and land acquisitions. That financial burden ultimately would fall on the local city of Keokuk taxpayers. The Keokuk Municipal Airport is more than a transportation facility. It is a crucial economic engine for our community, from supporting local jobs, attracting visitors, to generating substantial revenue through fuel sales, leases, and business activity. The airport delivers tangible financial benefits that directly impact the city of Keokuk. Since the city assumed operational responsibility in 2020, airport-generated revenues have grown rapidly, demonstrating the value of local management. Additionally, ongoing projects funded through the state and federal grants have enhanced the airport's infrastructure while minimizing the city's financial risk. Whether the community the size of Keokuk needs an airport is not a question for social media. It is a legal and financial reality. Reducing it to an opinion is short-sighted and fundamentally misrepresents the proven value that the Keokuk Municipal Airport brings to Keokuk, Lee County, and the region that it serves. Not only would closing the airport eliminate these economic benefits, but it would also re-trigger a payment of nearly $7.9 million in federal and state grants, a liability that would fall directly on the local taxpayers. This data clearly illustrates that maintaining and investing in the Keokuk Municipal Airport is a fiscally responsible decision that sustains economic growth and local employment, and ensures that the city continues to benefit from outside dollars flowing into our community. The airport is an asset that keeps the city of Keokuk connected, competitive, and economically resilient. Preserving its operations safeguards the city's financial future and strengthens the economic fabric in our region.
Thank you, Raymond. Mark, did you have anything to add?
The other option that, I'm Mark Faffey, I'm on the Airport Commission. As Raymond mentioned, the repercussions of considering closing the airport would be financially irresponsible. But the other option is to go to what they call an FBO operation. Bob McDowell and I have been on the Airport Commission probably 30-some years. And prior to Raymond coming on, we had a fixed base operation, which the fixed base operator sells fuel, and he gives like a 5-cent kickback to the city. And since Raymond has come on and we've gone to a city-owned airport, city-run, is run by a city employee, we've increased sales by a profit, or increased sales by almost $175,000. By going to a fixed base operator, you would lose a potential sales from fuel and also from hangar rent as well, because more than likely the contract would read that the fixed base operator gets the main hangar and possibly the maintenance hangar. When we had a fixed base operator before, There are other hangars out there that belong to the city and they're rented by the city, but there was no incentive to rent those. There was an incentive to fill the main hangar up, just jam pack it full of airplanes, because that revenue went to the fixed base operator. And you may run into that again. So financially, either solution is not a good one. Not to mention a nearly $8 million payback if you close it, and you would lose revenue on fuel and hangar rent as well. Thank you.
I would add that historically, we have Raymond in this position because when our previous FBO left, we were not able to acquire a new one or locate one. And so if we were to go back to an FBO model, the probability of us identifying somebody and getting them into town would be incredibly low.
That's correct. Thank you.
With that said, we do have a motion on the floor with a second on the air evac. Is there other discussion on the specific issue or the broader issue while we're at it? Hearing none, we'd take a vote on the motion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. And that gets us to number 16, which is
Thanks, Raymond.
back to the budget.
Not enough.
We'll make some more. Jim's passing out the menu that he put together. And I'm going to let him explain it. There's the number, 223.
So it's not on the overhead. We did not, this has been a long week. We made it back here at what, 5 o'clock after being up there in Des Moines. We had this done before leaving, but I had to prep to meet with leadership, House lead or Senate leadership. The majority leader was not planning on that. And I was barely able to even get anything for headings on your PowerPoint. But the mayor did ask to have a sheet to try to do a summary of where we had gotten through last Saturday morning. So for the council, you do have where the beginning number there at the top, it's the same beginning number that we had before, the 1,686,000. And then the list of items that the council had taken action on to use to address. Planning department reduction 5,000, building 5,000, recreation department 15, tourism 49,200, Main Street Keokuk $25,000 reduction, Keokuk Historic Preservation 4,500, Lake Cooper 4,500, Rand Park Pavilion 6,750, Fine Arts Council 11,250, Arts Center the 6,426. We did request from the water department that they increase their payment in lieu of taxes, and they have agreed to do that up to by 10,000, so it'll be 210,000 annually now. Increased building fees, which is something that Pam still needs to get put together and brought forward over the next couple of months, but by about 10,000. Eliminate the franchise fee rebate that's in for industry, which would have a $210,000 impact. Consider increasing the electric franchise fee from the 3% to the 5%, would raise approximately $711,000 annualized. The first year, we would not get credit for that entire amount because we can't implement it until 2027. And the same with the gas franchise fee increasing from 2 to 5%, would be 135,000 as an annualized figure. The council took action to eliminate 2 unfilled positions in the police department, an impact of about 167,000. Took action to eliminate funding for Union Depot, the 8,000, reduce contract mowing by 35,000. So that figure spread across the different budget categories. He's got about overall, he's got about 150,000 that's budgeted for that line item. About 120,000 of that had been contract mowing. So we've taken away about a third of his contract labor for perspective, as that's still an item that's down at the bottom for consideration of additional amounts. Administrative staff reduction in the PD, 44,000. I know that had a different number put with it, but these are numbers I went ahead and just left the higher number on the side because we're talking about dynamics where we just don't know how that all plays out until it's done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought we'd hash that out on Saturday, what
And
that
put it to
looks like, and
34.
that's not reflected here.
What's that?
I thought we'd hash that out, what that looked like on Saturday, and that's not reflected in this number.
34,000 instead,
Mhm.
which I kind of wanted to give you the benefit of it, but if you want to go with the 34, we can. That would make that number, if that is 34 that we used on that, your total reductions or increased revenues would be 1,452,626, because we're right down to the dollar. And it leaves a remaining gap of 233,000. And you still have the list of potential options down below. I did add a couple that you didn't have on the sheet before. One is a reflection of the air evac contract. Moving forward, we'd be able to add the 12,000. That's saying that you're not eliminating an airport, but you'd be able to add that 12,000 revenue at the bottom. So that's an item to consider. And I did put another one on here, and I hate doing these things when you don't have a lot of time to talk to folks, but our city attorney arrangement, we use two different attorneys. We use Jim Dennis here locally. He is our named city attorney. And we do also use, doggone it, all I can think of is Patrick Callahan. What's the name of the? Lynch Dallas, for primarily the labor side, but we use them for other things too. And they do provide the same, they'll do all city government or all city attorney business if you want. But part of our arrangement with Jim Dennis includes a $4,500 a month retainer. So just to have him as our named attorney costs us $54,000 a year, and he still bills us the $225 an hour, which is about, I'd love to make $225 an hour, but that's about what most attorneys are. That's at figures that I've seen from across the state are $200 to $250, depending on what town you're in and which firm they're using. But that means changing the dynamics of how we're doing attorney relationships. It's going to a firm such as Lynch Dallas for all of our needs, as opposed to having someone local. And I haven't been around here long enough to know the relationship with Jim Dennis or how that has worked, and whether that's a positive or a negative, or just how hard that is to lose that level of service at a local position. But that is an option for you to consider as you're trying to figure out how to balance a budget.
Speaking on the city attorney, a handful of years ago, when we stepped away from using Lynch Dallas for all services, some of the reasoning was because of the travel expense and the frequency that they would need to come down to do simple court cases. They'd have to get scheduled around their schedule, and it complicated things at the local level because of that travel distance.
And one of the things I meant to call Seth today, instead I slept on the way back. I don't know how much, Chief, he does court work for you, Jim Dennis.
Yeah, he handles the city ordinances, but I don't see it on the back end who challenges these citations and offenses that are written on city ordinances unless an officer gets called to testify. So I don't know how often those things
So
are.
I didn't get a chance really to look into that. Now, Burlington, for example, with what you're talking about, had a local attorney that all of the court cases that were being done, the challenges of the tickets, they had a local attorney that did those solely, but he liked doing that. It was a passion of his. I don't know how you have a passion of being in court doing that, but they did a contract for just that, and then a separate contract for all other city attorney business with Lynch Dallas. Now, I don't know if that's a feasibility, but it's one that could at least be discussed. And again, I emailed Jim earlier in the week asking him some questions about how this worked, and he didn't respond. So I wasn't able to really get a whole lot of clarification.
When we made the change, we did it to cut our city attorney expense line. So I think we need to
It
go back
hasn't
and look
worked.
if it has or has not done.
It hasn't worked.
And we have quite a few court cases in our department too that Jim takes care of
Mhm.
on the nuisance violations and such.
Well, if we're spending more today than we were 5 years ago, then yes, I agree. It should be something that we should renegotiate and refigure then.
But again, I also didn't find out if he had anything that he included that was part of that 4,500, because he's not, just wasn't responsive to me. So I just apologize on that. But he certainly doesn't list it out itemized on the bill, so it's just hard to know if he has a level of service that he's using that there's some base hours in there.
So what you're saying is that the 4,500 a month is just so he can do our work. It doesn't include anything that he does do.
Yeah, the bill does not show that that is inclusive of hours of service. His regular hours of service on cases, he has outlined below that at the $225 an hour. Yeah. No, I haven't.
You have your mic on.
I was just saying that there is a contract in Laserfish for his services that I can pull up
Yeah,
for
we need to
you.
look at it.
You don't have that down on the menu here, though, do you, Jim?
He does, number 18.
It's the bottom. Just the
18,
bottom.
the last one. Thank you.
And that's one, if that's one that you're wanting to take a look at, I don't think that you can make that choice tonight. It's because I just know it's an option to consider, but I don't have enough info on it to be able to really feel confident on it.
So just to recap on that total, so we have agreed to make about $1.4 million in reductions in our operations, and we're still looking for $233,374. And again, I guess I emphasize that in our operations because of that's not all going to be realized this year. And so how do we handle what's not being realized?
So with the franchise fees, that revenue, 840,000, if we get a third of the year's revenue, would be, I think would be on the high side. It may only be a fourth. So we'll get 250,000, or I'm sorry. Yeah, maybe 250,000 if it's into the 4 months, rather than the full 850. I would just look at using the cash on hand. It is you're going to get it adjusted to where you're stabilized with ongoing operations. But there's most of what we've talked about for making cuts or making changes to things are ongoing operating costs. And it wouldn't make sense to make an additional change of an ongoing operational cost to reflect that we're not getting the full benefit of those new revenues for that first year. We know that we'll get them and that would have them in the out years. I mean, you'd be wanting to use, you could potentially, if you wanted to, you could transfer money like over from the emergency fund that has a couple of $100,000. But I would prefer to let it sit in the emergency fund to have on hand in case there's another derecho or flood or some other event over the next few years. You have some cash on hand to be able to address it.
All right, so that kind of gets us to that. So, other thoughts on that, or what's the council's pleasure on taking action to try and get us down another 233?
You did have a motion that had been tabled from the previous meeting.
We'd need a motion to bring back to the table the motion to reduce the library funding by, it was 50,000, right? Is what we were at. So we need a motion to bring that back to the table.
So moved.
Second.
So that's been moved and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that just brings it back onto the table. So now that motion is there and we can discuss the library. That motion is a $50,000 cut. So have at it.
And just as it applies to our current list, it would be like the first one, because there's 2 proposed cuts in the remaining 18. So this is just $50,000 instead of the $100,000.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
Yep. Monica, did you have anything you want to add in addition to what you said earlier?
No, not really, but I can answer any questions if they have any. What that would do.
Well, Monica, you're facing about $150,000 worth of cuts. What is 50,000 going to do to you, if you don't mind coming up and, sorry to put you on the spot, but.
That's okay, that's why I'm here.
And just so we're straight again, that these are a menu of items. She's not facing 150 of anything.
Right. No.
It's whatever you decide she's facing, so.
Just, suggested I should.
Yeah, so I mean, there are different line items for different things and none of those are just
Right.
all under discussion, so.
Yeah,
What's on the floor now is
it's the
$50,000.
50 and the consequences of that, the 50,000. Add to 50, I believe that we could absorb that in the operating costs without any reduction to staff. We would probably need to cut hours at the library, but that would keep the staff as it is now.
Are there any kind of fundraising opportunities or other revenue streams that we could look into specifically for the library's operations?
Yeah, we could do fundraisers. It's not something that we used to do combination with the Art Center, which is located in the lower level and part of the cost of the library. And the Historical Society, we had a 3-way fundraising thing that we did with them. And then we do have a foundation that's willing to put some money in if they are able to. Most of their money was spent developing the park on the rest of the block, the library right now. So they're kind of in rebuilding years.
So you do have a foundation that is a legal entity that could be a fundraising arm on
Right.
a more regular
And that's their
basis
job.
then,
That's
yeah.
their job, yeah.
Monica, could it be a situation to help you with your budgeting as opposed to letting somebody go? Could it be a situation where maybe in the wintertime when kids are in school and they aren't participating, could mornings be, some of the mornings, like 2 mornings a week, you don't have the library open, and then when it comes back time, when the kids are out of school, where their programs pick up and stuff, could it be a situation that would help with budgeting?
If it goes much past the 50, that's not really going to matter because I can cut hours. But if I still have full staff, then that money's still going out. So if it went more than this, I mean, that would be a possibility. Staff would have to be reduced because we're at a pretty bare minimum now. Does that work?
Discussion?
I do appreciate your efforts, though, to lower that reduction. I do sincerely appreciate that. Okay.
No further discussion. There's a motion on the floor. Those in favor?
Aye.
Let's take a roll call.
Marshall,
Yes.
Walker,
Nay.
Mahoney, Matlack,
Aye.
Dade, Van Berkom,
Aye.
Bryant, Greenwald,
Aye.
motion passed.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
The floor is yours, council.
The one item I'd like to talk about a little bit, and Mark, you might know a lot about this, and that is the swimming pool. I know that the YMCA runs it, and obviously years ago, the city ran it. My memory's not the greatest in the world, but I remember, of course, we're talking 20 years ago, that the swimming pool was losing before we built the new one. Because a swimming pool is going to cost money, right? It's like any other service that the community offers. It's not going to be a cash neutral. It's not going to make money for sure. But I am a little concerned about the amount that we are budgeting for it, the 120,000. And one of the reasons, a lot of reasons, but when we built the new pool was because we were spending so much money on the old one. It was leaking a ton of water. It was older, obviously. It was, 50 years old. So we put a new one in. And I think at that time, we were losing around $60,000 to $80,000 a year with the old one. Of course, you're talking inflation. You're talking 20 years ago. But I'd like to consider looking at that line item and reducing that to 100,000 and maybe going and renegotiating with a Y or looking at rates to shore that up so it doesn't continue to go higher than it is.
Yeah, I don't work for the Y anymore, and so.
I just know you're familiar with the process and you
You
don't
bet.
the goods about it.
I just want that to be known. I'm retired, so, but in the past, I can tell you that the personnel costs are about a $30,000 loss. So the rest of it is in your maintenance of your pool. And Brian, we did not, the Y only handles the personnel part of it. So any of the chemicals, any of the maintenance, any of the upkeep, any of that stuff is a city. And so those all came straight to the city. So Brian would have a better idea on that. I can tell you, the first year that we took over, the losses were high 30s. We cut that to about 20 and it's up to about 30 now. It's gone up over the last 4 or 5 years. One of the things that happened after COVID was wages all went up for lifeguards. State of Illinois, we sit on the Mississippi River. State of Illinois instituted a minimum wage, and all the lifeguards in Illinois, their wages went up to $14 or $15 an hour. We did not raise the Keokuk wages that high, but we came close, and that did increase our costs over the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah, so there's that. And then the rest of it's probably your cost of your chemicals, the cost of the maintenance, and all that sort of thing. And, I guess when I was running the Y part of it, I mean, we tried to be as efficient as we can. You know, you get some complaints that we'd close the pool when there was 2 people there or 5 people there, and somebody'd come in and then they'd want to have it. But you know, on a bad day, on a day when there's hardly anybody there, or it's raining or cold or something, we'd go ahead and close, and you're not experiencing those personnel costs. I don't think people appreciate it costs about $100 an hour in personnel costs to keep that pool running. So we're open 7 days a week, noon to 6. So we're open 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so you're looking at that for your personnel costs. Brian did talk, I know, because we had some conversation. Brian did talk to the Y director, and they have some suggestions for raising individual admissions fees, season passes, and parties to try and cut some of that loss. But I don't think you're going to cut much.
Yeah, we're at $3.50 for an individual. Other area pools are at 5. We're kind of talking about maybe bringing a 50-cent raise up for this upcoming year. We'd have to do that here in the next month or so. I don't think we want to jump $1.50 all at once. You know, I mean, everybody knows the demographics of our community, and we don't want to cut children out of being able to use the pool. One thing we will seriously consider raising is the party rates, because you can rent the pool for a party, and it doesn't, for 50 people, and $3.50 doesn't even come close to it. You're getting in for more like, I don't know, Mark, $1.50 or $2 when you do a party like that. But and then the other thing that different from 20 years ago to the new pool is we have to have if we want the slides, the diving boards, and everything to be open, that takes 7 lifeguards on duty. So that kind of up the personnel cost out there too. And when we budget actual numbers, because we have a pretty good idea of what the chemicals cost and stuff like that. And then you have just your general maintenance issues that pop up. I mean, yes, it's a newer pool, but I think it was built in 2008 or something like that. So it's got a little age on it, and we've had to do a lot of repairs over the last 3 years that we just have to do to keep it open.
Well, this is one I would like to get more feedback from the public on, because I sure don't want to be without a pool for those who love going to the pool. There's always been a pool there. In my own personal experience here in the last year or two, when I drive by, I notice more kids on the splash pad than at the actual pool. So I'm kind of wondering, do we need both? You know, obviously the splash pad is new and kids really seem to love it. So they do have a place to go and cool off and play in the water and everything. But when we're spending this kind of money to keep, a pool open, and, there are days when there's only just a handful of kids there, it's hard to justify that expense.
Well, I'm not in favor of closing the pool. And I know with this conversation, Doug, you had said, can we, instead of cut 120, just cut 100? And I don't think that's feasible. I think even still cutting 100 means closing the pool. So maybe a more realistic question is, can we cut 20?
That's what I meant.
And still keep the
I
pool
meant
open?
cut 20. I didn't mean cut 100.
Okay, all right.
But I'm glad that Brian explained it, because I think the pool's vitally important for this community. When I was on a council before, I was all in favor, and I was a big part of, helping get that accomplished. But I think it's just questions that we need answered to make sure that if we're looking at every situation, we need to ask all the questions. And I think Brian answered them. I'm not asking that we cut 20 if we're spending the money. Maybe raising the rates and see where that goes, and we'll look into it next year.
So raising the rates would help in the fact that the offset we have to pay the Y would theoretically be less. That's basically what we're covering for them. I think it was 27,000 this year is the check we got to the Y.
And just so we're clear on that, so the Y's Y's paying all those employees. That's a reimbursement to the Y for what the Y's already paid
No,
out.
I think
to
it's
the
great that the
employees.
Y is running it. I think it's a better structure. It's just a line item expense that needs to be discussed. But I think that I don't want to be hiring anybody else,
Right.
Whether we're talking about taxes or whether we're talking about anything, I don't want us to be number one in everything in the bad. But if there's room for improving that pricing structure, then we need to look at it.
So does the concession stand have an employee all the time, like
The concession stand is run separately.
okay,
So it's, when the YMCA took it over, we said we do not want to run the concessions. We had our hands full hiring lifeguards and managers and running that. I did not envision from 5 years ago that we were going to make much off of the concession stand. At that time, we went out and asked the schools, booster clubs, church groups, would any of you like to run the concession stand? And none of them did. If it was going to be a moneymaker for somebody,
so years
they
ago.
could have the opportunity. And what we ended up doing was hiring over the years a couple different vendors. We had a different vendor 3 years ago, and they set their hours and set their prices and set their whatever. Now we've got a different vendor. Her family's doing it. Just as their own
I
business.
was going to say years ago, for several years, they had bids on vendors that would bid on the actual concessions of the pool. And then whoever won that bid, actually, they did give the city a small amount of fees, but then they actually ran the concessions for the summer.
Yeah, and I really have no idea what they're doing there as far as if it's what it pays them financially. So, the city could say they wanted to do that again and look at that. I can tell you it was a struggle to get somebody to run the concession stand.
And then those people they're responsible for their licensing through the health department
Yeah.
also. And we don't
Yeah,
have to worry
and
about
truthfully,
anything.
again, it's their thing, so I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think they're even licensed because all they're doing is selling prepackaged
Right.
food
The
now.
new
So
vendors
there's
are
no
just
food prep
Right.
there. They may
previously.
be getting a health department license, I'm not sure.
Previous, there was food prep there.
Yes.
And new vendors are, like you said, just packaged food.
Right.
They've been doing that for years. When the old pool was there, Shirley Woods that worked for the ambulance company did that every summer. They bid out and she won it and she ran they've been doing it that way for years. My question is, could the pool be closed one day a week?
That is in the contract, that's solely up to the YMCA.
No,
Well,
backwards.
backwards.
We're running whatever the Y's running whatever the city wants to do.
So the contract says that it has to be open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. But, so I leave it up to the Y whether they
And
decide
7
to
days a
close.
week, yes. Yes. So the Y went to closing at about when kids go back to school for the high school. So it's closing
During the
the
week.
regular week, about the 14th or 15th of August, when everybody goes back to their activities and band and football and whatever other sports they have in the fall. And then we've kept it open pretty much on the weekends for that. But as far as if you want to only open 6 days a week and only pay those salaries and everything 6 days a week, that's certainly possible too. Sunday is not the busiest day of the week by any means. And Brian and I did talk about, if it's okay with the city, Brian and I did talk about trimming those hours some. We could trim a couple hours on Sunday afternoon without any problem. And if the city wants to close all day Sunday, the biggest thing, that determines your attendance at the pool is what the temperature is.
Yeah.
And so, there will be days when we turn people away,
Yeah.
when we are at capacity and turning people away. So,
But I would, just in that situation, I would never want them to close it on the weekend. Saturday and Sunday would probably be when families would come and everything, but maybe it's just a suggestion, 1 day a week and then we make sure everybody knows that the pool's not open on Monday, or the pool's not open on Tuesday, or whatever. And maybe that will cut down on operating costs.
I mean, we could do that. Like
It's
Mark
all,
said,
it's just all weather dependent, to tell you the truth. I mean, if.
when
and
we get
we've
into
had-
August, they're only open 2 days, they're only open on the
Yeah.
weekend, so we already cut 4 days out of it, in pretty much all of August.
Well, from the middle of August
Yeah.
on. And in June, when you open it Memorial Day, it can be cold on those days. And the attendance is in, and it can be hot on those days, and the attendance is good. And I'd say, again, Kathy, I mean, pick a day you want to close. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the biggest driver on whether people are at the pool is whether it's hot or not.
Yeah.
And so, Sunday I really see is probably, could be the slowest day unless it's super hot.
Well, do we think it's realistic and feasible that with a slight fee increase so that the Y is billing the city slightly less, and that by coming up with some other cost-saving ideas, perhaps only being open 6 days a week is the example that was used, is it realistic to think that that could cut $20,000 in 1 year?
Well, so the thing about it is, on operations, it would cut time for the WISE personnel, but you're still
That's the
pumping
WISE fees, not the
Right.
city's fees. Yeah.
Right. But you're still pumping the chemicals in.
Electricity.
Everything's still running.
And the
You don't
maintenance.
shut the pool down. So you're still using electricity, the pumps are still running, the chemicals are still flowing.
It's actually better for the city to have it open all 7 days a
Right.
week than to try to get as much fees.
Get
to
as much
offset.
use out of our money as we can.
The other thing on that though, too, I mean, when you're talking, if you'd close a day, for example, you're not going to pay all those personnel costs. The Y's fronting those personnel costs. So whatever that is, they get repaid. So if the Y would pay $20,000 in personnel costs, that's what they're going to get repaid. Right now, they're paying maybe 25 or 30, and they're getting repaid for that.
So eventually it does come back.
So it's not really that part of it is not a fee. It's repaying whatever those personnel costs are.
And I honestly don't know where we would get $20,000 out of the pool, to be honest with you.
I could say that if you change the rate structure and if you do do you do a policy now if you're down to like 5 kids or some number where you close the pool?
Yeah.
But have some of those reduced hours. I think you could do $5,000 to maybe $10,000 change and be okay with that, be close.
I mean, the thing about like the budgeting process, these are estimates we're doing right now for the whole next season. So it's most of the time, if we say if we have 110,000 budgeted and we hit 110,000, we just don't go close the pool down. I mean, we do a re-estimate in the fall or in the spring and adjust that back up and turn it into the state for what we actually spent.
Ryan, how often do you have to paint the pool?
It needs it now.
Every other year?
Oh, no, not that much. I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago it got painted, and they didn't do a very good job.
It was Robert's last year, I think, so whatever.
And who does?
Yeah, probably 5 years ago, 3 years ago. No, it wouldn't be 3, 4 years ago. But that company, from what I understand, didn't do a very good job, and then they went out of business as soon as they finished it. So it's in need now. That's something we'll have to work on with maybe applying for some grants or something to try to come up with the funds to do that.
Could the lifeguards do it? I mean,
It's kind of you'd want to, so it's not just painting it. They'd have to go in and sandblast all the old paint off and get it back down. And then it's like I don't know what you call it. It's like a polymer type of paint that's not really paint, but it's also a water sealant.
Mhm.
So it's actually hard to find anybody around here that does it.
I would say we would just move on with the swimming pool and leave it as it is until we see what the rates does.
Just a fun fact, when the first pool was open, it was the largest in Iowa, and the governor came and cut the ribbon. My dad was the head of streets and sanitation at that time.
I'd like to talk about item 11 next, eliminate river museum funding. I know that the Verity is really nice down there on the river, and it's fascinating, the history in there, but when we're talking about a riverboat museum versus public safety, I don't see those being on equal playing fields for the necessity of the funding at the current moment. But I do have questions, though, because we currently are in the process of grants and painting the Verity and getting it refinished. And in the capital improvement side of the budget, we had given approval for whatever the city needed to match to finalize that project. So is with all this grant stuff in play there, do we still finish up all the refinishing work out there if we decide to not open it this year? Or, what approach is best for the city to take
So
there?
grant-wise, we currently have a little over $8,000. We haven't applied for the addition, I think there's an additional 40, something we put in the budget. We haven't applied for any new grants yet. Kind of wait and see what happens, what comes out of the budget meetings, but that's where we're sitting. I'm not, so it was a local grant, so I'm not sure if that could be turned in to another project within the park system or not. That's something we'd have to find out, or we'd have to just give it back.
Is that refinishing project something that has been started?
Yeah, so there was like $50,000 in ARPA funds dedicated to the museum. Pam, was that like 2022 or somewhere in that neighborhood? Those funds have been spent on refinishing it. A lot of work on the inside and the stairs and portions of the outside. The additional work would be like repainting the hull and then the paddle wheel to finish up the outside.
Ron, do you know they get much traffic at all down there? Like what kind of?
They do. Early in this, they get a lot of groups that come in, student-wise, and during the course of the summer. We do employ 2 gentlemen part-time, and then there's a couple students that come down and work part-time also during the summer, which is in that budget. But I'd have to check with them on how steady it is, like, to be open 3 days a week or 7 days a week, or but certain times of year they definitely do get busy.
For that, for the budget for the riverboat, when we're talking about the 24,500 here, is that all staff payroll expenses? Or does that also include like the lights being on
Yeah,
in the
that's
evening?
all operations. So that'd be the electricity and the staff. And there's some general maintenance dollars in there also. I don't know what, we'd have to see what to do with it if we did decide to close it, because you just have a big boat sitting down there with no use, but.
Would that what would that look like if it did sit with, for a year or two down there?
I mean, I'm sure it would, like anything else, it would start to deteriorate without any love being added to it. I mean, we'd still obviously mow the property and keep the lawn and stuff looking nice, but as far as what the guys do with just the general maintenance, cleaning and that kind of thing down there, that wouldn't happen.
Well, the problem I see, if it's paying for the utilities and keeping it open, if we take the 24,000 out, we're basically, unless they get funding somewhere else, we're closing it down.
Correct.
And if we ever decide to open it back up, it's going to be hard to re-trigger all that volunteerism and all that stuff to get it reopened again when we decide we want to open it again.
I mean, if it's going to seriously be an option in the future, we should consider trying to find somebody to take it over. I mean, it'd be awful hard to do it right now if you guys decided to say we're come July 1, it's closed, and then starting next fiscal year. I don't know that we can find anybody in that short of time to take it over.
I mean, they're not here to talk about it, but that would seem to be a good place where the gaming money could be used for a permanent structure, but that's not our conversation.
Right.
So on this list, there's some eliminations of different positions, and I guess I would like to look at number 16, reduction to the tourism/Main Street. Does that include Main Street Incorporated or just tourism?
I just put it on there to include both of them for a discussion. I mean, I don't know where you're wanting to go with that part.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of it. We've already cut 25,000 from the one and 49 from the other, but yeah, that's still there, and it could be either way, depending on how you wanted to look at it.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking, and again, we don't have a lot of information. They have 2 paid employees. I don't know if they're full-time or part-time, but they have 2 paid employees, but we're looking at cutting positions in other departments in our city that are probably more necessary than 2 employees at the tourism. But again, that we don't get to make that call. But and then we're not funding, for example, we won't be funding the people that came for hotel motel tax, and we're saying to them that they need to do something to increase, they'll have to do fundraisers and that type of situation. Maybe tourism needs to do the same thing. Maybe they need to do stuff to raise money so they can, maybe there's not, I know they do Eagle Days and I know they do Geo Days, but maybe they need to come up with another one to help them make more money. I don't know. And do they need 2 employees? I don't know. And I think something else that we need to kind of look at is, we don't have anything to say about the CERC money, and I know that the board's not formed or anything, but I do know that they kept, the first year they came to us, we got 67% of the CERC money. The second year, we got 50 some, and the last year we got 37%, and somewhere that money that they collected is sitting. And maybe they're going to do a big project at some point, but they haven't even formed their board yet, and that money's sitting there that could be going to some of these things that are out there. I don't disagree that they can't do a big project, but right now that money's sitting somewhere and they haven't even formed their board yet. So that is, to me, that is a place where money could come from. They do have it now? Okay, but they didn't at the beginning when we started, but in these 3 years that they took the money from the city, from the general fund, which was theirs to take, and they did it the way they were supposed to, that money is sitting somewhere.
The one thing I'd like to seriously have a conversation about is we have 2 people in City Hall that are retiring, and that's Annette and Pam Broomhall. And my question is, we're doing all these cuts throughout the system on, maybe not, we're not letting anybody go, but we're eliminating positions. And when we have 2 of these, with Annette and Pam retiring, my question is there anything, I think that both jobs are important, but I don't know if there's any way in-house that we could restructure the remaining staff to recreate a position or share responsibility or anything like that to kind of reduce the in-house spending. Since everybody else is being cut, I think we need to at least look in-house too. And see if there's something we can do in our own house.
I think we also need to, it's easy, it's written down here on a piece of paper that says eliminate Annette's position upon retirement, eliminate Pam Broomhall's position on retirement, but we don't have a list of what these people do that we would be eliminating. And that's where my problem is You know, for example, Pam does planning and zoning and community development. That's 2 full-time jobs, whether anybody wants to realize it or not. What is going to happen if are we going to put, and I think it deserves a conversation. Are we going to say, okay, so Pam does the permits for building and that type of situation, and she does fencing permits and that, and on and on. Where is that going? We can't just say, let's just eliminate that position. We'll have garages built all over the city of Keokuk that don't, you know, that don't face code. That's my point. I'm not saying that it can't be altered, it can't be changed, but what I'm saying is it's hard to vote on that because we don't know what those 2 jobs entail. We don't know what, Annette does at her job, and is her job, is she able to give her job to somebody else? That's a full-time job. Same way with Pam. And I guarantee you, Pam has 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, I agree. Is there a way that we could get something to present to us that would show what a restructure would look like and who would share what responsibilities, if that was
I can say that if we did go that route, you're just going to lose the services because it's going to be too much to add on to current people at City Hall that would have to take over, say, all of Pam's responsibility. On the net side of things, what's written down here, she has $8,000 of her salary that comes out of the general fund. The majority of the work that she does is for public works. You could easily put that salary into one of the public works departments and not even have the conversation of saving the general fund.
She does your park commissions. She does a lot of minutes.
She does a
so
lot.
It's not.
She takes care of
she
all the
truly
sanitation stuff. She takes care of the parks.
The position is partially general fund. It does make sense the way it's that split like that, but the time that the number of phone calls that she takes would go on to, well, really, it'd probably be Shannon having to move downstairs, who is trying to do payroll. So you're going to have, that's, I think, is probably who would pick up some of those duties. Some of them would get pushed over to Amy. You're going to be writing your own minutes for these different boards and having to get the agendas out. That's going to fall on a combination of Brian and Pam.
Well, but what I'm hearing Brian say is keep that position and just pay for it out of a different department.
You're just going to push, but it's doing general fund duties. All you're doing is hiding a problem.
I guess I think it's worth a conversation for City Hall to look at different opportunities, because if we're all supposed to get together, if every other organization is supposed to get together and figure out how they're supposed to handle it, I think we can do justice in our own house.
Well,
See if we can, and maybe not tomorrow, but in this next few months for sure, to look and see how we can reorganize in-house. And maybe if we can't, we can't, but I think it's definitely worth the discussion to see if those jobs can be split.
The decision would have to be made now because you wouldn't budget for the position.
I would like to say, Doug, that, when I started, we had 15 people, plus the mayor, a full-time mayor. I think we're down to 11 people with a part-time mayor. So we have been cut over the years. It just, you keep cutting, and it, things get lost, and they're going to continue to get lost. I mean, it's going to be bad enough when Annette and I leave, just the knowledge of being lost. But there's no
Then
way.
We're gonna have to hire 2 new people, and they gotta be trained. And we gotta see how long, it's gonna take them months to get into the rhythm. I get all that stuff. But that's why if we have people in-house that can possibly share some of that, I don't know if we can or not. All I know is that it's a decent, those 2 positions or it's quite a bit of money, and if we need them, fantastic. But I think it's at least worth the discussion. But I agree what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think in my position, and I don't want to sit here and say I do more than anyone else, because I don't know what anybody else does. But I'm just chasing my tail all day long. I never, hardly ever get something completed before somebody else is calling me. I have to go do another inspection. It's just constant. I mean, somebody could take on some of the duties of just the building department not all of them, but some of them, to relieve the position. Because honestly, a lot of the inspections don't get completed because I don't have time. That's something that the fire department helps me out a lot with. But I'm just letting you know that, I mean, somebody could take some of it on, but you need to find somebody that, which I guess regardless, unless you hire somebody, promote somebody, or somebody from the fire department wanted to come into the position that knows, the inspections and such, they're going to have to be trained anyway, but.
And that's my point. I don't know how to vote, because I don't know exactly what your job is, and I don't know exactly what Annette's job is, and how much work that goes here, there, and everywhere. We have Shannon, and then we have, unfortunately, Celeste, the city clerk, would have to probably take something, and then we have a deputy city clerk. And maybe we don't need a city clerk and a deputy city clerk. Maybe the deputy city clerk could take on some of it, and maybe Shannon will have to take on some. But my point is we don't know, because we don't know what has to go here, there, and everywhere.
And it sounds like when I come down to, take care of business as far as the citizens, everybody seems like they have the hand in every situation that goes on. And it does seem as in, most of the positions are already overwhelmed with being understaffed and having, a lot to do. So, that's my experience of it. Whenever I check in on something, I call somebody, there's 3 or 4 names from the city that they're already working with. So looking at even mitigating those positions.
I'm
we're already
wondering,
overwhelmed with staff.
just for the sake, as it pertains to this meeting and this budget, if we were to agree that we can kind of get an idea of maybe just not replacing both of those positions, but just hiring on a new person, when the time is right, maybe we could account for the 88,000 and the 8,000 being added together. So that's 96,000, and just take half of that. And so 48,000 is what we're going to be budgeted to pay a possible new person after you and Annette retire. So we're not bringing on 2 people. We're just maybe planning on bringing on 1. By then, we'll be able to separate the duties and have a clear idea of what that 1 person is going to be doing.
We won't get anybody worth hiring for
Yeah, you're
that
not,
dollar
you're not
amount in
going to
that
get anybody.
position.
No.
Well, we're not under any time constraint, really. We can bide our time and wait for the right person.
Maybe if we, did a slight decrease down to 80,000, but if we try to fill Pam's position in the 40s, we won't get.
Well, we're not going to have
Just
somebody
as
to
we
come in
moved-
with Pam's
just as
knowledge
we
either.
moved
That's
up
going to
here,
take
we
time
done away
to.
with one position, and we put them duties on
think
Shannon and them. And when you do that, you've got to give them some compensation for taking on other duties. So you're not gonna, you can do away with a person if you want, or if we deem we need to. But it's been cut. Everybody in city government has been cut. I know, I live in the past, but John Reed said at one time there were 26 people on the street department. Now there's 7. So where are you going to go? You can't raise taxes anymore, and we're getting to the place where we just can't cut. So what do we do?
I don't think it's feasible for the city to cut Pam's position. I just think that workload would just be too astronomical for everybody else.
When
that
she
we would see in
retires, we're going to be in that
capacity.
position whether we want it or not. So there'll probably be a time gap between when that position is filled anyway.
And that depends on when you hire.
What's that?
I said, that depends on when the city decides to hire,
Right.
which theoretically you'd want to do a couple months ahead of time so they could work with Pam, but.
Which is, we got to get clarity on this first before we even know if we're going to be able to afford to hire somebody else.
I mean, my job duties, I do zoning, which consists of, well, the zoning and building actually play a part in each other as far as setbacks, site plans, that type of thing. So I do building permits, demo permits, sign permits, fence permits. There's quite a few permitting type things. I do, like I said, the zoning. There's a lot to the zoning. There's more to the building part of it. I review plans, issue permits, do inspections. I can't really, I'm the zoning board, with the Board of Adjustment, City Planning Commission, the floodplain manager. I'm not even sure of everything I actually have to do, but those are just a few of the job duties.
It sounds like, to me, I think if we're gonna get one position right, it has to be Pam's. And I don't think we add or take away from what she's doing, or for the person coming in, that's gonna have to be like the Michael Jordan of knowing everything that goes on. I mean, I come in, I can ask her about a fence structure, and she has it down. And to even fill that spot, it's gonna take a person a lot in years to come to get to know that.
I think too that she didn't include community development and the grant writing that she does, and how many times have we had to, you do all the changes of the code and all the ordinances and all that, and so then we just say we're not going to hire anybody. Where are we going to be?
I did forget that code revision.
We got Casey that works for you. She's kind of been on board with you for a couple of years now.
Casey's actually, her main duties are the nuisance and vacant property, and Casey chases her tail. She does assist a lot of times if we need some documentation or data as far as our housing grants. Casey does go out. She's extremely knowledgeable, as far as the housing vacant, who's where. Casey may apply for the position.
But you don't want to lose what she does either.
Correct, and she's excellent at what she does. And you need to keep an eye on what their goals are with the community. And our goals are to try to continue to make a better, betterment in nuisance violations, vacant property. You can't take that away from the city either.
I know that a couple of times I've been down when I was building my home, that there's been a line. Two people behind me, I'm behind one person, and you're answering the phone call when we're there. And if you look at all the permits and everything that gets put in place and we're following the code through the city, then permits generate a little bit of money too. And to make sure that somebody's not putting up a chicken coop right next to you.
That's something that the animal control and Casey take care of.
Well, again, we're back to this, to what I said in the first place. We don't really know what goes on and doesn't go on. And we have three people besides Annette and Pam whose job have taken on extra stuff when it came time. And those jobs are all split up too. And then when it comes time to say we don't hire these two, then those people are going to get that, and it's all going to get split up again, or some of it's going to go here or there. It just doesn't make any sense again till there's a plan as to how that will work.
I know we've worked closely with Pam over the years as far as plan reviews and the inspections. We have like 9 personnel, I think, that are inspector certified through the state of Iowa. So again, I don't know all of your duties, but there's definitely a lot of overlap between fire and the building section.
And there is, and I'm grateful for all you guys helping me out.
Well, we have 2 open positions. We should probably just make a cut and tear the Band-Aid off, because we had 2 open positions with the police department. We didn't blink. We got rid of them. to save money, and we have 2 open positions coming now. We're not going to have to let anybody go. It's going to be done through retirement. So let's figure out a way to cut one of them to save ourselves some money and move the process along.
Well, when looking at the two, it seems like Annette's would be the one that would be more feasible to figure out if it didn't exist, as opposed to Pam's. It also has a much smaller impact, though, on the general fund budget.
The role that Pam plays in making day-to-day operations work for a city are more important than like my position. I mean, to honest, what you have to do for, with codes and dealing with zoning and board of adjustment and all those are necessary things that have to happen in a community. That role, it needs to be filled. It could be, if you eliminated that role, you're going to have to figure out how to put some of it either into your engineering techs down here, down to the fire department. You'd have to roll a big chunk of it up into my position, and I'd be overwhelmed. But the roles that she's doing have to occur. I think you are correct that Annette's role could get distributed easier between other positions, but I think it would have a lot of pain involved in it too.
It would have a huge impact, but I also, other employees, and I'm not going to say step up because I think all employees do their positions and we're all overwhelmed. But if somebody calls about trash or sewer or street or anything, those calls need to be taken care of, as quickly as possible. Annette does a lot of those. And, whether, who takes care of those, I don't know, but, we don't need to lose that in all the, trying to shove everything to somebody else.
I guess the point I would make is that we have this menu and everything we're talking about is on it. So it was put there for discussion. And just because we bring something up doesn't mean that's exactly what we want to happen. But it goes back to just what Matt said, where do we go here? This is a tough deal. But my question is, when we go to a department head and we don't want to micromanage, right? We're not in the micromanaging business. We're not going to go tell the chief of the police how to run his organization or the fire chief how to run his organization. All we do is say, here's your budget, and I hope it works for you. And then hope they work with us and come to a conclusion. That's all we can really do. But what I'm asking, I don't know if there's an answer today. I don't think there is an answer today. But what I'm asking is, when we cut 3 policemen and maybe 4, because there's still one more on the list, right? We're asking them to step up and we're asking them to make it work. And what I'm asking is, I understand Pam's position. I've dealt with Pam several times over the years in business, and she does a great job, and I know she's busy. But at the same time, what I'm saying is, in-house, is there a way to reorganize it to save one of those positions because they're both retiring? Is there an opportunity to solve that in-house, seriously look at it the next 2 or 3 months to find out if we don't solve it today and we go in with a deficit, then we go in with a deficit. If we don't, then let's make some other cuts. But the question is, I think it's worth conversation to find out if it's Annette's position, for example, that's easier to distribute, even though you can say some of it, only 8,000 comes out of the general fund, it still affects the city. If it's coming out of Brian's fund, somehow or another, it's a filter, that money's got to be appropriated for. If it's not appropriated for, it can go somewhere else, right? So if that position is eliminated, one position, that money is going to be spent somewhere else, even if it's on roads, even if it's on anything else, that money will still be available. So when we're asking to make these serious cuts, I'm just asking that we seriously consider in-house on how maybe we can do a better job. And if we can't answer it today, that's fine.
Well, for the sake of the discussion, I've been keeping track of the math, and where we're at is approximately 171,000 for an annualized difference. And so to see where we can get that a little lower as we continue to have these hard conversations, if there's any of these that people are agreeable to, as opposed to ones that we're not agreeable to, we could maybe pick a couple of those to see where we get that number a little closer. So I mean, I hate to do it, but I'm going to go back to the River Museum. So I'm going to motion that we accept item 11 as proposed.
Moved and seconded that we reduce the funding for the River Museum by 24,500 or 25,000. There it is, 24,500.
And that does represent all of their annual funding.
Yes.
And that's just the GOM Verity, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Is there other discussion on that item?
What was the reduction to, or was it an eliminate?
Eliminate, it'd take it down 24,500.
Okay,
And that's the entire funding for the Verity.
that's your entire funding.
Correct. Is there further discussion? Take a roll call. Celeste?
Marshall, Walker, Mahoney,
Aye.
Matlick,
No?
Dade, Van Berkom.
Aye.
What was that?
Aye, excuse me.
Sorry. Bryant,
Nay.
Greenwald,
Aye.
5-3 passes.
Motion passes. Takes us down to a little under 150,000, about 147,000. This is not easy.
I like number 18 in revisiting the city attorney arrangement, but I feel like we just don't have information to know what that number is. So I'm just going to say that's probably not one that's even worth having a vote on at this point in time. Going back to the pool, make a motion that we cut the pool funding by 15,000.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we reduce the pool funding by 15,000. Discussion?
As what, related to what we were talking about earlier with the pool, does that pretty much force them to adjust their schedule, maybe eliminate one day, cutting that 15,000? Will that pretty much force their hand to?
Well, it's forced, I mean, that's something that we would have to do as a city, but yeah, we'd have to come up with some options.
Okay. Which I'm fine with. I'm just kind of curious if that's.
It'd be a combination of that and then raising rates.
Don't know what's in the maintenance either. So
We'd have to look at what line items to take that $15,000 out of, but
It can happen.
yeah.
moved and seconded. Take a roll call. Celeste?
Marshall, Walker,
Aye.
Mahoney,
Aye.
Matlick,
Aye.
Dade,
Aye.
Van Berkom,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Greenwald,
Aye.
7-1 motion passed.
133 to go.
I've got us at 131,000, right under 132,000 in a reduction in operations.
We haven't talked about the fire department yet, and I know the citizens don't want us to either, but we've talked about every other department.
Gabe? Sorry to bring you up at this late hour, too.
Hopefully I'm not as long as Zeth, huh? So I'm gonna pass these out. I got some things I'd like to read first, and then we'll go over these sheets. And I'll go ahead and get started because what I'm reading isn't on any of those items anyway. So thanks for letting me speak this evening. I appreciate the difficult financial decisions the council is facing. And on behalf of the Keokuk Fire Department, I want to emphasize that we are committed to working with you, supporting council priorities, and exploring creative solutions to maintain public safety while being fiscally responsible. Tonight, my goal is just to clearly explain how the Keokuk Fire Department currently operates, to outline what reducing staff would look like, to explain how that would impact both our firefighters and our citizens of Keokuk. The current operation is, the fire department is currently staffed at 18 firefighters and 1 fire chief. Firefighters work 24-hour shifts followed by 48 hours off. Operating on 3 rotating shifts, each shift is staffed with 6 firefighters, providing guaranteed immediate response coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This staffing model ensures predictable response times, consistent training, and safe operations when emergencies occur. Cutting the firefighters, 3 firefighter positions, with 6 firefighters assigned per 24-hour shift. Cutting 3 firefighter positions equates to 1 firefighter per shift, which is a 17% reduction in staffing on every shift. The operational impact is emergency response is highly dependent on staffing levels. Studies show that in small to medium fire departments, each firefighter reduction can increase response times by 10 to 20%, particularly during multiple or simultaneous incidents, which has increased here within the last few years with our simultaneous incidents. Just Monday, we had 5 come in at once. So, the difference was back in 95 when I got hired, we ran 350 calls a year. Now we're over 2,000. Where did I end up there? Currently, the department operates with 5-person minimum due to vacations, illness, and injuries. Approximately 80 to 85% of the time, there are already only 5 firefighters working per shift. If staffing is reduced by 1 position per shift, that same 80 to 85% of the time, the department would be operating with only 4 firefighters. The public safety risks involve fireground safety standards, including NFPA 1710 and OSHA's 2 in, 2 out requirements exist to protect both firefighters and the general public. Reducing staffing may force riskier tactical decisions or delay interior fire suppressions altogether. While discussing the tragedy that took place on December 22nd, 1999 may be uncomfortable, it remains a significant part of Keokuk's history. Our community must remember what occurred and the crucial lessons it taught us. Reducing staffing levels to 4 members for initial emergency response would disregard the impact of the tragedy and would expose current members to similar risks. Fewer firefighters also delay CPR and life-saving interventions. Advanced life support, patient packaging and transport. Research suggests that 10% reduction in fire staffing can result in 5 to 10% increase in fire-related injuries and fatalities. A 17% reduction proposed places Keokuk well within that risk range. Overtime and burnout and injuries with 24/48 scheduling, losing 3 firefighters would force increased overtime to maintain minimum coverage. This leads firefighter fatigue, higher injury rates, increased workers' compensation claims, and greater burnout, all of which carry financial and operational consequences for the city. Insurance and ISO rating impact. Fire department staffing directly affects the city's insurance services office rating, which influences insurance premiums for residents and businesses, especially commercial properties. The ISO evaluates guaranteed staffing, not best-case scenarios. Staffing reduction today could result in an ISO downgrade, increasing insurance costs for the community for years to come.
While the immediate budget may show savings from cutting 3 firefighters, the net annual impact, including insurance costs, overtime, and increased fire loss, could ultimately cost the city and citizens more money. There's also the potential for city liability. If understaffing leads to delayed response, increased property loss, or injury, the city could face legal liability for failing to provide adequate emergency services. I'm going to pause there and we'll go over some of these fact sheets that I've handed out to you. So the first one is the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association. They are the organization that develops and publishes fire safety codes and standards, and they work hand in hand with OSHA requirements for most other jobs, as well as what OSHA requires of the fire service. If you look at the key elements on the first page there, it talks about on a single family dwelling, minimum staffing 16 to 17 members. If you cut the 3 members, we'll be down to 16, which we still fall in that range, but it's still talking about 4 guys trying to cover all of the problems the city faces. And that's just a simple single family dwelling. If you look at the others there, garden style apartments, we have those minimum of 27 or 28. Strip malls, 27, 28. High rise, we have several in this town, 42 to 43. So the idea that we have a number of members that makes it a luxury is not true, right? We're well below what is required for a fire department to have for personnel. The second part just talks about the requirements for how fast you're supposed to respond to the services, including, the dispatch center, EMS turnout, fire turnout. We won't spend a lot of time on that because most of the time we are within those ranges. The next 3 pages, I won't go into great detail on it, but it was a request from a lawyer to OSHA trying to define their rules for the 2 in, 2 out. And later in this packet, we'll get a little further into that. But the highlighted part basically describes what the OSHA representative responded back, saying that if you're going to outfit 2 individuals with air packs and go into the dangerous environment, you're now required to have 2 individuals that are fully masked up and ready to go outside in case of emergency for them to actually go in there. If you read through the document further, you will see where fines were issued by OSHA because when 2 people went in, somebody's messing around, with the flaking out the hose, other jobs that are required to be done, and 4 people trying to get it done is just not an option. It doesn't happen. Again, if you want to read through the rest of that document, you will see some of the faults and some of the fines that were handed out. So go to the page where it just shows the Keokuk Fire Department current operation, which is your red, blue, and green. That's us in a nutshell. The difference in the color code equates to blue is the A shift, red is the B shift, green is the C shift, and that is your 3-day rotation. So even though it shows 18 guys, there's 6 guys that are actually working, counting myself, during the business operation hours. If you cut 3, which is the next page, just drops us down to 5. The following page is basically getting us down to that point where we're talking about 80 to 85% of the time if you do cut 3 personnel that's this page right here. So you're talking about an assistant chief, a lieutenant, a firefighter 1, and a firefighter 2. And how that correlates, if you look at the very last picture, which is this, showing all the little firemen in the fire trucks, that's what's required when you go to try and put a house fire out. That's not even counting high rises or anything else. And as you can see, that's a total of 17 on scene. And the idea of us showing up with 4 to try and take care of it is next to impossible. So you do have your attack lines, your backup crew, you have to have a pump operator, incident command. That's one of the things we were going to get fined on back in '99. They looked at our operation and explained to us, hey, you're here, and when we're done, we want you to be here. So we reached that level, and if you do cut us, you're going to put us right back in the situation that we were going to get fined for. And if you care to read that report also, I mean, it was done by NIST, NIOSH, and ATF. It's available out there if anybody wants to read it as to what occurred that day and, the mistakes that were made and what we can learn from them. So that's pretty much all I have on that part of it. The other handout I gave was just, we just wrote down all the tasks that the fire department actually does. A lot of it you don't see in the newspaper or anything else, but it is us being very busy on a daily basis. In closing, the Keokuk Fire Department is dedicated to serving the citizens as effectively as possible. We respectfully ask that you do not dismiss the importance of December 22nd, 1999. We believe it is essential for the council to clearly understand the distinction between our longstanding staffing levels maintained over many decades and how proposed cuts differ. The service residents expect from their department, and thank you for your consideration. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question for Jim. Came up in a previous meeting about putting a vote out to the people to designate sales tax loss, the local option sales tax, to incorporate a percentage of that for public safety. If we were to look at that approach to help generate revenue as opposed of the approach of making structural changes to the fire department, is that a comparable dollar amount a possibility? And if all we're doing is shifting sales tax dollars from one pot to another, what other aspect would then negatively be impacted by that?
You can do that. That can go to a vote. I think that you have to do that at a regular election now, the way that that's set up. So I think you have to wait till the next regular election and wait and see if it actually is approved. And you can say what your purpose statement is, or with a modified statement. If it passes, then you could have a change. That's certainly doable. We have, what, 1.6 million that comes in annually? And you have the flexibility to move things around within that.
And that's not creating an addition to the current sales tax. That's just reallocating what the city already collects, how they legally could distribute it then.
Yeah, you have you'd move it either from most likely from the infrastructure or from the property tax relief portions.
I think we need to seriously consider and look at that particular option.
I think it makes sense to have a discussion about it, but you can't, it's
Right,
it's
there's no
one that you don't
guarantee.
have any guarantees because you're subject to the vote of a people.
Right.
Anything else? And that's kind of why I was presenting this as opposed to, I mean, we're not opposed to looking at a combination, but it's the same thing as what you're saying with the vote. There's no guarantee that's going to fix our overall problem. But it's worth the conversation.
Chief, do you currently go out on every EMS call?
Yes.
Are there opportunities for any budget savings if that policy were to change? For example, I believe the city of Montrose no longer goes to every call. They wait for EMS to call and tell them that they need additional help.
Yeah, so with the hospital being gone, that's put extra strain on Keokuk. Jason can kind of back me up on that one, but it's a difficult, like the call we just had Monday where there was 5 calls at one time. I mean, that's an anomaly, but it's not unusual for us to get 2 and 3 at any given moment. So we have 2 ambulance rigs down here, but what happens when they're both transporting? Because it does happen. Now we're waiting on 101 or 104 or one of those that are coming from up north. So there is a citizen waiting for help that's not going to arrive if we do something like that.
When you go out on a call on first responders, is it still a fact that you can't leave until they are transported?
Right. You can never abandon a patient once
Pardon?
you can never abandon a patient once you establish care until somebody comes along and you can transfer.
I mean, at least 2 of you have to stay there.
Right.
The other 2
Right.
go
And that,
someplace else.
again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but if you're down to 4 guys and 2 of them are on a medical call and a fire comes in, you're talking about 2 guys showing up trying to put it out. So it's just,
But if you're there, you can't leave there
right.
and go to a fire.
If they're already locked in with an ambulance call, they cannot leave.
Is Fort Madison, we compare everything, Fort Madison. Are they first responders also?
Yeah.
else?
When you go to a fire, like say on a middle road, and you only have 4 or 5 of you at the station,
Mhm.
so you have to call in the other.
Right. Usually our protocol is, if it's room and contents, we try to call in one shift, try and save overtime, but if it's fully involved, we call everybody.
So when you go to this fire, when do you find out if there's people in the building?
Usually the dispatch center tries to gather all that information as we're en route. They can't always find out, but sometimes it's not until we arrive and somebody's screaming, could be my dog or cat or something, people.
So initially, when you go, you have 5 personnel on the ground with the trucks,
Uh-huh.
with the hoses. You have to make a determination. If there is somebody in there, 2 people have to go in, so that leaves 3 people out.
Right.
Until you call off duty, and how long does that take them to respond?
About 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they take their clothes home with them?
No, they have to come back to the station, and usually you don't want to send a truck unless you get like at least 4 of them that show up before you start heading that way, because we just don't have enough equipment to get everybody out there. If one guy shows up, jumps on a truck, we got to wait for like a truckload to get there.
Exactly. So if you get to a fire scenario, say there's people in there, you're half already, the building's gone. So with the small crew that you have to go to survival.
Yeah, it restricts
mode.
what we
You
can do
can't rescue.
based on manpower alone. It usually restricts on what we're capable of doing, but, at least with 5, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but the difference between 6 and 5 is huge. When we have a full crew, and something breaks out, the guys are very thankful to have that one guy available. So let alone when you go down from 5 to 4, it just makes it that much harder. Because one of the things we got gigged on was making sure we established incident command, which means the officer in charge, he's doing a 360 around the building. He's watching the conditions. If things start turning bad, he's honking the air horn, telling everybody to get out. He's their safety, valve to say, hey, everybody out if things start going bad. Where if you're inside, it already looks bad. You don't know if conditions are deteriorating or not.
So on the middle road fire,
Mhm.
that whole structure was devastated.
Yeah.
So you were there in, say, 2025?
No, when that call came in, we were there within 5 minutes.
Okay.
But that was the initial crew. But by the time we got there, that had already moved out of the garage and into the main living quarters. And the way the wind was blowing that day, it just fed the fire. And we just watched it run all the way to the end. So,
Okay.
And those are other factors usually. I mean, in my career, we've had other ones up here on the north side of town where the wind was so bad, it caught 3 more fires or buildings across the street on fire. So it just, weather conditions can play a factor in it.
How many responded to that middle road fire then?
Which one?
That middle road fire that he was talking about?
We did an all call for it.
So that was everybody that was
Yeah.
on staff?
Yeah. Usually when they're leaving, if they can see a column of smoke, they're just going ahead and saying, hey, get everybody in here.
The chart is fascinating, so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so
what
that's,
everybody's doing.
I thought it would be easier if you just saw it. Instead
Yeah.
of reading how many people you need,
No,
you
that's
can,
cool.
you can see what is required when you go, and that's a simple, single structure house,
Yeah.
What's the time frame on your next anticipated losses of personnel through retirement?
There's 2 guys that could go at any time. They've never established a date. There's another one this fall, 2 more this fall, and then, at least 1 more in 27. And I could be forgetting somebody, but nobody really announces those retirement dates till they're, 15 days from retiring.
The one thing that we discussed amongst ourselves is that in the contract, it says 5-man minimum.
Yes.
So that contract doesn't come up till next year,
Mhm.
April or something of next year.
Actually, they'll have to have a new one established July 1st of 27.
Right, next year.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so those negotiations will go on probably in December and go all the way through
Mhm.
March or whatever. So the problem, I shouldn't say a problem, but what we're facing is that if we made a decision today to eliminate 3 firefighters at this moment, they're going to backfill it with overtime.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a savings to the city at this point. So to me, it's kind of a mute position
Well,
at this point.
even going down the path of combination department, I mean, he's already identified it. It's not something, I mean, they still have to go through the same training by code of Iowa, right? Everything these guys are required to do, they're also required to do. So, are we going to put money in the budget to pursue that? I mean, I don't, we gotta start having conversations. That's why the last time I was up here, I was asking to have committee meetings just for some direction, right? Because it seems like a lot of this conversation has been had, and I've mentioned to Jim several times, I need to be part of those conversations. And to date, I have yet to talk to anybody about, pursuing that.
I don't think any of the conversations have been had.
I think what's concerning though, since I, 2018 to 2021, this is a conversation amongst, this is very important that we figure out, budget and where we're at.
Right.
And you're still on, and you're the leader. And I think that we're in the conversation of, we're looking at everybody saying, where can we all pony up, And I guess that's what the question is as far as in your position and you leading the helm, why they have somebody of your magnitude and your experience, where do we go?
It's a great question because we're hearing how it takes 7 lifeguards to run a pool. Certain personnel has to be filled on no matter what department you're talking about, but you're thinking that 4 people is reasonable for the fire department. I mean, I don't have an answer for that. If we can try a combination of some sort, what's the guarantee that it sustains or is working for us? All right. Because the whole point of this conversation I brought before you was 4 guys on a shift is not an option. It's just not. And we want to help, but I mean, that's why I showed the picture there of what the NFPA is trying to say. This is what it requires. I mean, so it even talks about if you bring an aerial device, add another guy, right? And we use our aerials because it helps us with manpower, the lack of manpower. It does a lot of work for us. But this is a labor-intensive job. So I don't know, I mean, if a combination department works, that's great. It relieves a lot of burden off of me and them, right? But it has to be a successful program, right? You can't just say, hey, we want one, okay? And, I asked you the other day in the gym, you want to volunteer? and like everybody else, you got things to do, right? So where do we find that help? And how do we make sure it sustains? Because once we get one, let's say if it starts off and it's successful, but what happens with those guys that are on it within 2 or 3 years because there's no anchor, right? I mean, are you going to pay them? I don't know. That's part of the conversation. Are we paying them? Are we trying to ask them to do it for free? You're not providing health insurance. There's no anchor, right? Why? I just don't want to do it anymore. See you later. I'm not going to show up. It's 8 below 0. I don't want to come in, right? I mean, these are all things you have to factor in as far as creating and so the little bit of research I have been doing so far, it's all departments that were volunteers switching to paid people, not the other way around. It's not paid departments looking to go to volunteer system. It's the opposite. Why? Because volunteerism's dying. But that doesn't mean we can't give it a shot, but I still need to have these conversations with somebody.
Yeah. Well,
for direction.
I think that's what, that's the call to action.
But the point, I mean, it's like his sheet says, it's not going to happen for 2 to 3, 4 years. Okay?
Yeah.
You just
Like Mike
2 years to train them.
Like Mike brought his point to the table, so that made sense. So, as long as well that we're talking about the combination there, is there any other conversations that would work?
Possibly. But again, we have to start think tanking it.
Yeah.
You got 9 volunteer systems throughout the county that we can call them at any time. We have mutual aid with them. And Jason's been in it. Gary's been in it. Those calls are going unanswered in the county at times. It's difficult to recruit and retain.
Vacation you got?
What's that?
How many weeks of vacation do you have?
Do I have?
Your department?
I really don't know that answer. It all depends on how long they've been there, but I don't know.
Well, you
I'm
know,
just saying, when I give you that 80 to 85% of the time somebody's off,
Yeah, if you got 52 weeks vacation, that's a full.
we don't have 52
I-
weeks
I mean,
vacation.
total.
I
total.
wish.
That's a employee,
Oh,
total.
yeah, they don't go the full year. Usually when it gets cold, it tapers off. But yeah, usually. So when we have the minimum staffing, it restricts what these guys can do, right? We can only have one guy off at a time, and that creates an issue, right? I mean, sometimes, you know, you got brothers on there, they want a vacation with family, and they just can't do it. So that's why there's so much competition to, you know, have some summer days off, right? Usually the senior guy gets first pick, and he might take, you know, 3 weeks in a month or something. So, you know, it's tough for them to have days off as it is. So that's why you see it stretch out. You know, some of them have to push their summer vacations into spring or late fall.
Well, I think it sounds like, you know, we can't make any changes to the fire department for next year. We're looking 2 to 3 years out, if any change were to ever happen, which I feel gives us time to maybe look into, is there some kind of feasibility study of what that hybrid model could look like?
Sure.
And could it be successful? We don't know
Right.
what we don't know. And so we do have kind of a cushion of time to do this research and to see what possible options do exist
Sure.
out there. Same token with, you know, the sales tax that I brought up. I mean, we're looking a couple of years out as
Sure.
that as well. So
Hey, Gabe? Are all your firefighters, including the assistant chiefs and lieutenant, everybody in the union?
No,
No.
3 assistant chiefs and myself are not in the union.
The 3 assistant chiefs and yourself are not union. Thank you.
Yep.
Have you talked to Mount Pleasant to see how that,
I haven't reached out to anybody yet.
Okay.
I was gonna try and put something out in the Fire Chiefs Association email chain just to
well,
see.
we were compared to Mount Pleasant? And how do you compare, but?
Well,
it's not-
in all fairness, a fair comparison between fire departments is really your call volume, right? Because you cannot determine what the needs of Keokuk is versus Fairfield or somebody else. I mean, we're running 2,000 calls. I think Fairfield's 800 calls, right? So their community obviously doesn't require as many calls as we do. So the real fair comparison is not just population, it's actually how much are we being utilized.
Well, say down the road, just saying, that if we have 4 or 5 volunteers, plus our regular staff, or are they required? Like, say, if they look out and it's 3 degrees out, they're like, I'm not going today.
It is a requirement, but, you know, it could be a number of excuses. Hey, I was out of town that day or something, right?
Or I've
I
had a
mean,
couple
they can give you any excuse they want. And then, most likely what would happen is if you have a repeat offender that's never making the calls, then he's really not worth having anyway, right?
Still putting workers at jeopardy.
Sure. Yeah, and that's why I say it's just because you have the system in place doesn't mean it's gonna produce. Not saying it won't either. I mean, we don't know until we get one started or start moving that direction.
And what would their response time be? Depending on where they
Yeah.
lived in the city. They have to
Yeah,
live in
I would
the-
imagine they would carry their gear with them. And I'm just guessing because again, I don't know much about the combination department. So they may get there depends on where they live and that sort of stuff, you know, how fast can they get down there?
Yeah.
Because
Could be
most
20
likely
minutes.
they're gonna have to report to the station first to jump on a rig or,
Could be 20 minutes to 40 minutes.
and if you watch videos, I was gonna bring some of those, but again, I don't wanna burn up everybody's time. The first 7 minutes of a fire are the most crucial, right? I mean, that's when you got your limited staffing, that's when, you know, everything is breaking loose, and that's when you need your help. Because as more people come in, the chaos starts settling down, but that first 7 minutes, and that's usually what it takes, you know, 5 to 7 for them to arrive, that's when backdrafts and flashovers and all those sort of things, those are when those occur.
In the meantime, they're still responding to EMT.
If we're fully involved in a house fire, usually we'll radio them and saying, hey, we won't be taking those medical calls.
what do you do? You said the other day you had 3 or 4?
5.
So how do
Yeah,
you determine?
the last
which-
one, I guess, somebody was hit down here on Main Street, and we couldn't make it. We let them know that, and then when they finally got to a point where they could, they just radioed and said, hey, do they still need help down there? But at the time, I think the ambulance had already taken care of it.
Now, who has, do the citizens of Keokuk have prior over Roquette? Or,
No, it's usually just whatever gets called first. Limited staffing. When the bell rings, we would go answer whatever call came, because we don't know when the next one's actually coming in.
Roquette does have a small staff that is trained.
Yeah, I think it's a hazmat staff, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Tyler asked that the other day. I'm not sure what all they're capable of. I think they have I think they have trained safety personnel and hazmat personnel. I'm not sure that they have trained fire personnel. Yeah. Yeah.
Relying on a volunteer response.
Yeah.
That's one thing you don't want to.
Yeah, all of the factories we have, they make us nervous.
But I would like to see, since Roquette is basically a town unto itself, there's a lot going on down there. I would like to see some sort of compensation to the state fire department, just because we have to maintain a certain level of equipment and staff to be able to respond to threats specifically coming from them.
Yeah.
Would that be off, my outline with that at all?
I know Fort Madison has a pretty good relationship with DuPont up there, but that's not something we've ever reached out with Roquette on.
They're big, but they're not as big.
I don't know if their factory up there is, but I would say worldwide there. Yeah. And I know they had a lot of, I think it was hazmat group training and stuff up through there. And we've done that with Roquette in the past. It's kind of tapered off, but it's good training when we all get together, so.
So with the personnel you have, if you had 2 fires, 2 home fires, do you, of course, you call in everybody and they're first. And then if you can't control it, then you call.
Yeah, we can call
Watertown?
Jackson Township. Yeah, we can call them Hamilton, Montrose.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's time, that's a half hour anyway.
Yep.
So.
And a few years ago, we did have an arsonist, and we have had 2 fires at once. So there's been several occasions we've had. It happens.
Then you get to a point where is it just to put out the fire and you can't go in and
Yeah.
save anybody?
That particular day, I'm thinking of, we got very lucky. 2 guys were over here by the hospital, and they were lucky enough to get it early, and they got it knocked down with just 2 of them. But it's not something we want to do every day.
No, thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabe.
We're at a late hour. I know this is, again, super difficult to do. We've made good progress, but we're not where we want to be, I don't think. You tell me if I'm wrong. I would say we're probably at the point where we need to adjourn another day.
I would, as a motion, line item number 2, eliminate that position. I'd make that in the form of a motion.
It's been moved.
That they haven't filled. Correct?
It's just,
You've already taken 3 of my staff, actually, an administrative position and 2 patrolmen.
It's been moved that we act on number 2, where we need a second. Hearing none? That's all right. I don't want to push us along if we're not, but I don't hear a second. So the motion will die for lack of a second.
eliminating pay increases for all non-union personnel. I don't want to eliminate pay increases completely. Is there any way we can do 1%, 2%? Maybe cut that number in half?
Turn your mic on.
Oh, sorry, thought it was on. So the question is for raises for non-union personnel, can we just lower that number and not completely eliminate it? I mean, what would 1% look like for non-union personnel, you know?
Where's this at? I mean, where's the non-union personnel? Who
It'd be
is-
like department heads.
It would be,
And
That's what?
it would be city hall staff, it would be Pam, and it would be those two departments. And yeah,
Like there's,
Are we at 4% right now? Is this our year for 4%?
it's 4%. And so like 70,000 is 4%,
so 2% would be
35.
But there could be a,
But, I mean, the biggest problem, well, you have two problems, and you have folks with different groups getting treated differently, which happens. But you get pay compression, particularly in police and fire between positions. That makes it hard for having people move up. Now that's, I mean, that's, if you do that, that's fine, but you got to know that you're creating an issue there between union and non-union for those gaps, you just start to lose incentive for people to move up.
2,000.
But I mean, just making it like a 2%, that would,
Yeah.
instead of the whole amount, which is on the list, it is a suggestion, so just kind of giving its due consideration. Yeah, just kind of wondered what 2% would look like as opposed to 4, but.
Yeah, 35. You
So-
wanted to do that?
In 2024, the police department, they got a 10% raise throughout the whole department in 24. What's the average is 3%, 4? Well, they almost got double plus. I'm not saying they don't need a raise for 1 year, but they've almost got 2 raises in 1 year.
Yeah, I can add a little context to that if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not downplaying.
We were down 33% of our staff and we couldn't get anybody to apply for our department. We were by far the lowest paid in our county. And that 10% raise didn't even, it made our patrolmen, I think our patrolmen are the highest paid compared to the deputies and Fort Madison, but not by much. And our supervisors still are not the highest paid in the county. So that 10% market adjustment was just to address our lack of staffing.
The years before.
Yeah, like I said, we were down 33% of our staff.
There is a bidding war going on for police officers. No, there is a shortage everywhere. This is at local police, counties, state patrol. I mean, that's where I mentioned,
Yeah.
go to work for ICE and get a $50,000 bonus.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not complaining about pay, but I believe Burlington patrolmen are about to get a 23% raise over
3 years.
3 years. And Fort Madison, I believe they just turned down, their police department turned down 9%.
It's going to be higher than 9% raise.
And yeah, it'll be, yeah. So that adds a little context. I know 10% sounds high. It was a high raise at the time, but it had to be done or we were at critical mass.
Well, and you want to say, our population's down from the 80s and 90s, but we didn't have a meth problem that we do now.
We've also lost other police department personnel since the 90s. We were up to 27 or 28
Yeah,
at one point. So we've already reduced our
have
personnel.
it replaced too. Yeah, I get it.
What's your thoughts on how to proceed?
I think we've made some good progress tonight. It's hard to know about any of these other cuts without digging a little deeper. And I don't know about everybody else, but my brain's shot. So.
There's been a couple of items that we've talked about that we just didn't have all the information tonight. The city hall positions was one that came up a couple of times. The city attorney has came up a couple of times. Can we maybe wait to have the next meeting in a time frame where we would have that information that's been brought up and requested before we would reconvene again?
We need to set the levy on the 19th, is that right?
That's the target date, isn't it? Tonight?
You're going to get the levy set regardless.
Yeah, I don't think this
It's not
impacts the
gonna
levy,
change.
yeah.
What's everybody doing Saturday morning?
Timing, you can't do it.
Can't do it Saturday because we're too close, so
Oh, yeah, that's right.
our next opportunity would probably be some evening next week or another Saturday, so. And
And I don't think any of those questions get answered in 3 days anyway.
I don't know. Members want to check their calendars for a week, Thursday night? I'm throwing out something.
It works with me.
Good with me. Everybody's going to be here?
Be Thursday, the 12th. We can't give notice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're fine. There's not enough time for notice. Next Thursday.
What time?
It's good. 5 PM next Thursday? All right, another budget session next Thursday at 5 PM. Just to recap, I've got us at 132,000 away from the number that we were hoping to get to. I've lost my agenda. There's
Oh, yeah.
council liaison reports. Council staff or staff reports, anything that was under staff reports that you want to get into at 9 o'clock at night? I don't see any new business. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Those opposed? Crazy.
I don't know where I'm supposed to insert myself into some of this stuff because
Well,
this is,
you need to clarify and give us information.
fireworks.
Well, I tried to get somebody
No one even talked about it.
texted.
I'd still be cutting more. I don't think we cut enough from the library, and I'm not gonna give anybody any help until we do that. So. If there's a staff person in here to cut in City Hall, it is Annette's position. Well, I mean, that, the longer that y'all struggle, that's part of,
But this is our.
Annette's position is the one in City Hall, if you're gonna.
This is our 6th meeting. We'll be going into our 7th meeting. I don't know how many hours that is, but we've got 15 hours into that.
Yeah.
We usually went every
I-
Saturday, 4 hours.
I,
for 45%.
Well, we're in there.
no,
If you were taking 4 or 5 Saturdays and not cutting 1.7 million, you are not being real efficient. But
This guy,